Okay, I see it's 7:01 p.m. on my clock. So good evening, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. Town of Wakefield Board of Appeals for March 10th, 2021. Start with a roll call of all board members. Chip Tarbell.
Now I'm here.
Thank you, Chip. Jim McBain.
Here.
Amy Wall.
Here.
Joe Pride.
Here.
Mike Feely.
Here.
Greg McIntosh.
Here.
And Tom Lucy.
Here.
Thank you. And Gail Conroy, equally important. Okay. All right, we'll proceed to the legal notice. Amy, take it away, please.
Consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 10 people, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation to the greatest extent possible. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and or listen to the meeting in real time. Persons who wish to do so are invited to click on the following link. If you do not have a camera or microphone on your computer, you may use the following dial-in number: 1-301-715-8592, meeting ID 91492270146, passcode 748-748-101. Please use dial-in or computer and not both, as audio feedback will distort the meeting. This meeting will be audio and video recorded. 1. Continued hearings. 2. 21-43 and 21-44. SGD Management Group LLC, application for a special permit and site plan review under Article 6, Section 190-32 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw to allow a 5-unit mid-rise or garden apartment building with a combination of other uses, including retail or service establishment. Application for a special permit under Article 6, Section 190-32.1, allowing reductions and or alterations to dimensional controls that are required under Section 190-32D and Table 2, Table of Dimensional Regulations of the Wakefield zoning bylaw. The requested reductions and or alterations may include and are not limited to requirements relating to lot frontage and width, front, side, and rear setbacks, floor area ratio, building coverage, and open lot. The property is shown as map 18, lot parcels K41 of the assessor's map, and is located at 97-99 Water Street, Board of Appeals.
Thank you, Amy. All right, of the continued matters that you referenced, we've received a request from the applicant to continue it for this evening, so we'll take that up first in case anyone was here. So I'm sure there may be for this hearing. So from Attorney Brian McGrail, dated March 10, 2021, regarding Crescent Commons Development LLC, 44, 46, and 48 Crescent Street, Wakefield, Mass. Case number 21-37, requesting that we continue the matter until our meeting at March 24th, 2021, in the process of meeting with the Board of Appeal members designated to review in that subcommittee and discuss architectural aspects of the project.
I move that we continue this till the 24th.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Jim?
I should note that we have a meeting tomorrow night, a public meeting, basically on Zoom. It's advertised on the website. It will be at 7 o'clock, at which Amy and I, as designate, will work with the architect to see if we can modify the appearance of this building and other aspects as well, in an ongoing design, basically, effort to make this more appropriate to the area. So if anybody that wants to attend can attend publicly. It will be basically observation only. You'll hear us, but you won't be able to add anything. The time you'll be able to add anything will be at the next full public meeting.
Thank you, Jim. So again, the details for that are on the town's website. That meeting has been noticed. As well, just for everyone's awareness, we did get the TAC report just this afternoon from our town's TAC with a VHB memorandum. So again, I encourage everyone to read that before the next hearing, as I'm sure we'll get into some of those aspects at that time. So with that, any other discussion on the motion to continue? All All right, regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Amy,
Yeah,
Joe,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and Mike.
Yes.
Thank you. So if anyone's here for that hearing, specifically, it'll be heard on the 24th. And as you heard, there's a subcommittee meeting tomorrow evening via Zoom. Okay. So our first continued hearing that will proceed this evening is cases 21-22, 23, and 24, 168 Lexington Street LLC at 525 to 527 Salem Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail representing the applicant, 168 Lexington Street LLC. Here with us again tonight is Robert Sarasi, who is the principal of the LLC. Jeff Hager from Phoenix Architects, Peter Sandors, also from Phoenix. And where is Chris Barajas? Chris Barajas, who is our site civil. We've done a lot of homework assignments since our last meeting. I just kind of thought it might be helpful to kind of recap some of the issues that the board wanted us to handle and be prepared to present tonight. And then I'm going to hand it over to my consultants to let them go through some of this in detail. The first thing we did, we reviewed the Department of Public Works memorandum, made sure that all of the changes that they requested were incorporated into the site plan. They had certain conditions or notes that they wanted. Those have now been put on the face of the plan as the board prefers, rather than have those in a condition. And those have been presented by Bill Renaud, the town engineer. As far as the site plan goes, you also requested to make a change for granite curbing throughout. You should see that as Chris goes through his presentation. You requested us to add the dumpster enclosure and some a detail sheet on that, which has been done. You also asked for the call out of the retaining wall and the materials, and Chris will get into that. As far as the architecture goes, we have put a spec of the proposed paver material on the plan as requested. Jeff has detailed the railing systems that the board wanted. We've called out the ventilation on the building. We've provided a little bit more detail on the signage on the building materials that the board wanted. You also asked us to locate the electrical meters to determine if we needed screening. We've confirmed with the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department, as Jeff will show you, that the meters will be inside the building. We were also asked to do the same thing on the water meter, just in case it needed screening, and that is also going to be located inside the building. You also asked us to show the roof equipment in some detail, which Jeff will get into. You also asked us to provide draft conditions and a operation and maintenance plan, which we submitted last week. And we also submitted a construction schedule for your review and consideration. So that was kind of our punch list item to handle. I think probably, if I may, Mr. Chair, Chris, could you, kind of efficiently go through the changes that you did on your site plan?
Sure. Would it be okay to share my screen?
Sure, you should be able to, Chris.
Okay. Let me do that.
And Brian, while he's bringing that up, I think the one other item I think that we captured was just going over the required relief at this point. Again, just as.
Oh, yeah.
If you mentioned it, I may have missed it, but if you did, we'll get to that. Thank you.
Okay, so here's a PDF of the plan set, and I'm just going to scroll, cover each of the items in detail. We'll go right to the dumpster enclosure detail. First, on the layout plan for municipal solid waste, our dumpster enclosure is proposed in this back corner. And after speaking with the owner, Mr. Zaraski, about design for the enclosure, what we're proposing to do is a split face block enclosure in a U shape. The split face block will be gray. We shared that information and a picture of the block with Jeff to add to his material data sheet. And then on the front of the U would be an 8-foot swing door that would be a 2-inch tube steel frame with vinyl paneling on the inside of the frame to finish it off. And we provided a detail of that design on sheet 8. of our plan set down at the bottom here on this sheet right here. So the middle is the plan view, and then a side view, and then a typical section. This would be what you would be looking at if you were standing in front of the dumpster enclosure, looking at the door, the tube steel frame, and then a look at the split face block wall. Mr. Tybell also commented at the last meeting that it might be a good idea to also screen the recycling enclosure area or the recycling container area that's underneath the covered portion of the building. So we took a look at that with Mr. Zarowski and with Jeff, and what we came up with was a plan that would just add a couple of wing walls to the area that's going to contain the recycling container area, and these wing walls would be treated on the outside with the same materials that the building is treated with, and Jeff can confirm that during his presentation. So that's a change. On this layout plan, we're also, all of the curbing notes have been changed so that they all read vertical granite curbing. So vertical granite curbing throughout. I had a conversation with Joe Conway, the Director of Public Works, regarding the water meter locations, and he sent me an email confirming that that because of freezing concerns, their recommendation is for this project is to put the water meters inside the building, so they will not be outside. We provided a model and a color for the short modular block wall that we're proposing. We had previously shown the modular block wall detail on our drawing set here. We worked with the owner to pick a particular model. It's the accent unit with a gray block to go together with the split face gray block on the project. And this block and color has also been added to the material data sheet that Jeff has put together. Brian McGrail and I also worked together with Bob on putting together the O&M plan for the property, which I believe was submitted. And then Brian also mentioned that there were a few remaining DPW comments with regards to notes that needed to be, that they wanted to add to the plan. And we were able to add those notes right at the bottom of our list of notes on sheet 1 of the plan set. And they had to do with requiring a environmental monitor during construction, confirming estimated seasonal high groundwater in the vicinity of the subsurface infiltration chambers, and then requiring an as-built plan after the project is completed. So that's all I had in my notes for changes to the civil drawings, Mr. Chairman, and I can obviously answer any questions that the members have.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions, board members?
The one question I had is, I think it's great to put the sidewalls on the recycling. What are those going to sit on?
So that'd be a good question for Jeff. I think they're going to have a foundation, but I'll let Jeff speak to that.
Yeah, so we're showing it as an actual brick wall with a foundation. So
No, I meant what are the actual recycling bins going to sit on?
It's on a paver system. So
that is pavers there?
Yes.
Yep.
I don't see where does it show that on a plan?
So that's on the landscaping plan. Let me pull up a copy of the landscape plan real quick. Let's see here. Just bear with me for a minute. I'll pull up that plan.
No, thank you.
Okay, let me share that screen. So this is the revised landscape plan that shows the various surface material treatments, including in the back here. And this is a paver block, a paver material that's also been added to the material data sheet that Jeff put together.
Okay, so now the key is, Chris, with all these plans, you need to update these plans to match the plans you just showed us, because these plans don't have walls on. All plans have to coordinate. So the small detail is that this plan has to be updated to show the wing walls.
Yep, that's not a problem. We'll
And your
coordinate that.
enclosure for your dumpster and all that.
Okay,
You know, they just all have to be coordinated. So that there's no confusion as to which one overrules what.
Chip, would you want Chris to put a spec sheet on his plan to show these pavers on his plan too, or no? Is that necessary?
No, no, I guess I think it's more that if this is whatever plan that the granite, like, is the granite curbing listed here as something other than VGC?
it is not identified as any, called out as anything.
As anything?
That's correct.
Yeah, I guess it's, I mean, Jim, guys, help me out with what we've done in the past. But it's been making sure that all the plans are coordinated. So I don't think it's necessary.
Well, I think,
This is the one for paving and pavers and all of that.
well, the pavers and the paving are gonna be put probably down by the landscaper anyway, or at least jointly. And we have a material sheet, but in order for the material sheet to make any sense, it really has to be highlighted somewhere, basically, because it's just a material sheet. So there might have to be a few notes on this, basically to indicate, that this area is a lock block, this is a paver, a 2x2 paver, and the other ones are, whatever they are, basically. So in general, some sort of note on here would delineate that information. The same is going to have to happen on the elevations, that whatever material basically is a material sheet should be replicated in the type it is and where it is.
Yeah, but Jim, wouldn't this set of plans be rolled up with all the other set of plans being dropped off at the building department?
Well, but you don't necessarily know which one's going where, all right?
No, but the updated set of plans, right?
It helps me when I review the plans, basically, when I go check it and, 3 months from now, that I remember everything, and where it was. The other thing is basically is the contractor's got to know where it is.
Yeah.
And our biggest thing is which one rules? Does the site rule, which has the wing walls and the trash enclosure, or does the landscape rule that doesn't have those things?
That's true, yeah.
That's why I'm saying they need to be coordinated.
Yeah.
I agree with that comment, basically. Then the decision who's going to call out what material where. So do you duplicate it between the landscape and the civil, or is it all being installed under civil? So whoever's sheets are installing it should call out the product.
Is there a sheet currently that calls it out?
Yes, it's on the material data sheet, I believe, Jeff, right?
Which plan has an arrow that says
This was an
with
interactive.
lock? Yeah, it's going here.
This one does.
Yep.
But see that right there, Chris, what you just brought up doesn't call out what the paver is. Type. Right? So you've got on your material data sheet, but it's not back reference to here.
Yeah, we can handle that. That's, I
You know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I do.
Brian.
Yeah,
Yep.
we can handle that. And I can work with Chris and Jeff and the landscape architect to get that done. And then, maybe one of the board members could review it to make sure it's consistent with what you want.
Muted means they can't hear.
I mean, but to the to the point of what they're planning on doing, it's all fine with me. I think it looks good. I actually, usually we just get a fence around a dumpster, so that this is being split block is much better.
And it actually does say the detail, C detail. So this, this does have dump enclosure with a C detail sheet. So it's giving you that reference.
Yeah, but the pavers don't.
No, I'm saying, but wherever there's something isn't noted and ties to the materials.
Right.
Is what and I think Brian and the team get it. So, okay.
Yeah.
I should note that when we have the materials displayed basically on a sheet that's before us, it's for color, appearance, and what the product is. By the time it gets to be a permit set, that sheet's generally not there anymore. It's really notes on the drawing. So it could be a list of materials with arrows or a letter number or something like that's denoted on the elevations or the plans and like. So because the contractor's not going to be looking at the materials, they're going to be looking at the drawings they're building from.
Right.
Okay. All right, Brian, do we want to go to the other updates? I think we're all set here. To the part of the package.
That went onto Debbie's dinner.
Brian, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Jeff, do you want to use the screen or you want me to do it? Either way.
No, I'll bring it up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So yeah, we'll walk you through some of the materiality callouts and then some of the more architectural elements of just where we're putting mechanicals, things like that were concerning to the board before that we've addressed on this round. So we'll start with just materials. Once again, brick veneer, Summitville B2111, Cambridge, Hardy plank lap siding, and any of the gray bays are going to be made out of Temptation MDO with that gray color. Calling out parking lot lights, Hadco Pima series LEDs. Windows will be Anderson 100 series single hung. Any of the bays are going to have a copper metal roof. Black sconces will be any of the wall sconces on the balconies, focused on down lighting so they don't shine up. And then railing spec is this Superior 9100 open railing. It's a metal rail, pretty nice product that we found. The canopies are all going to be done by a company called Extrudeck. It's an extruded aluminum canopy, similar gray metal to match the railings in the rest of the building. For signage, we want to do the address of the building above the main entryway awning. That's going to be in this impact signs, cut copper letters. So above the sign, not fascia mounted. On the lands.
Building, not talking about your building.
For the retaining walls, we're going to be doing the Versalock. It's the accent color. It's a very gray, kind of muted color. It's a pretty nice product. Vinyl iron gate, that's for the dumpster enclosure. This is the concrete split face block that'll be surrounding the dumpster enclosure. The walk surrounding the building will be brushed concrete. The pavers are this Unilock trio granite color. It's a really nice look to it. That will be in the back of the building where the cantilever is, and as well as the recycling enclosure. So we didn't want to just leave it left. So I think that's a pretty nice product that'll look great in the back of the building underneath that cantilever, since we can't do landscaping. In the basement plan here, you can see we have a water meter room and electrical meter room instead of putting them on the exterior of the building. So we won't need to use screening. And then for mechanicals, we started to lay out the roof plan. You can see we're centering the condenser units more towards the middle of the building to screen it from viewing. So when you're on the street, the parapet wall will block view to that. Elevator pits in the middle. We're calling out a Buckley vented hood. We haven't gone through MEP yet, so anything we can do to reduce the size of that can be a condition of the board. We're willing to work with you on that. And once again, you can see on this right elevation, you can see that that enclosure for the recycling bin. So we're trying to block the view. We're creating it out of brick so it matches the facade of the building. We didn't want it to seem like an afterthought. So hopefully it'll be kind of a continuous look that screens that view towards the recycling bins. Started calling out parapet details, cornice details, everything's dimensioned. You can start to see we have a 3-foot cornice towards the left side of the building that goes up to 4 just to create a hierarchy towards the entryway. Similar cornice detail on both of those parapets, and then in the middle it's more minimalistic where the building insets, and that gives it that cadence as you walk through the main facade and as it wraps around the building.
So Jeff, what's happening? You touched upon a little bit of the mechanicals, washer and dryer and stove vents.
Yep. So all those will be roof vented. We've called out bathroom vents, the ones that are closer to the wall. So those are on the elevation now.
So you got bathroom vents coming out the walls.
But yep, just on the exterior bathrooms, the internal ones will also be roof vented. So
Okay, but I don't see them on the roof plan.
yeah, we didn't show the stacks on the roof plan.
So are they going to be below the parapets?
Yep.
So anything on the roof that you haven't called out is below the parapets. We're not going to be able to see any mechanicals above the parapets.
Yep. The only thing we have to review is that elevator vent.
Right.
That as called out will be above the parapet. We're trying to come up with a better option and work with you guys on that. We just haven't found a better product. So right now it's spec'd out as what we've used previously. So we're going to work with our MEP guy once we're a little bit further in design. And then I spoke with Brian. He's fine with making that a condition of approval since it's sort of an unknown at the moment. But the goal is to get a product that's lower.
The sidewalk around the building is brushed concrete.
Yep.
Now, did I see that the landscape showed like not a paver, but a brick paver or something like that? Was that what it showed as a texture?
So that's just the hatching pattern for it. It's not proposed as a brick paver for the walkways, but it is proposed as a paver where it's underneath the cantilever where the recycling is.
But only in that recycling area, not the walkway itself.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
That's correct. I'm looking at the landscape plan right now.
Okay.
Jeff, question. The copper roof there, is that going to turn green over time, or is it fake copper, or any thoughts on that?
So we saw it as real copper that would turn green, but there are products that are we could spec where it'll maintain that color.
Okay. You see it as a problem if it turns green? I mean, I know you were trying to match the brick probably with the copper.
I don't see that as a problem. I see it as a historic look.
Yeah.
So I actually like that, but it's more of a preference thing. Some people wanted to maintain the shiny brand new look, which I understand as well.
Yeah.
But you can pre-patina all that stuff too, so that it doesn't cause problems when it runs, basically.
Yep.
So was there an actual answer? This seems like 3 different things. Is it just going to be left as it is, or Jim said we can do something? What's the actual what?
I mean,
Right now it's called out just as copper, so it would patina over time. If
Okay.
you guys, that's not something that we're concerned about either way. So if you guys have a preference and don't want it to patina, we can work with you on that.
I'm not against patina or pre-patinaing. It's more the process of getting it to patina basically in the early stages, because it ends up with a green stain that will end up on the sidewalk. Any place it's going to drip, it's going to end up basically staining the ground around it, and not primarily on hard surfaces like a sidewalk, like brick or something like that. So I would suggest that if the object is eventually to get to patina, basically, then it be pre-patina to start.
well, Jim, you bring up a good point. Is there going to be gutters over there, or just going to drip down?
That would just be a drip down, so.
So would it drip down on the sidewalk or the grass or?
Yeah, you would drip down on the grass, so. The sidewalk's not close enough where it would
Okay.
hit that.
Is it gonna make is it gonna kill the grass?
No,
No, it won't. No,
No, all right.
it won't cause any, it's only when it hits, other surfaces, basically. We're talking about the canopy at the right, at the front, right?
Yeah, the two little overhangs there, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's gonna cross a sidewalk or something, so that's the real issue, basically.
So board members good as is, or do we want to take Jim's recommendation and request that it be pre-patinaed?
I'm probably the only one that would like to keep it copper, like shiny.
Well, you can also seal it.
Mm.
I don't know how long the seal lasts, but you can seal it so it stays, sort of not a bright shiny color, but a dull copper appearance.
I think that would look better with the building itself. I mean, it's not a super modern building, but it also doesn't give the effect of, something older that's gonna patina and, look weathered. I think it's something that should look fresh and updated and clean, personally.
Well, I mean, as I look at the elevation here, basically, to have them coated, basically, so they're not new copper, but they look like they're part way would be best, because it comes better with the brick, I think.
Mhm.
I agree, yeah.
So it would be some sort of coating that seals it, basically.
Jeff, team, you good with that?
yeah, that works for us. It's not a problem. So,
Okay. We'll just have to note that somewhere, either on the materials or as a note. I'd rather not condition something like that, but
No,
okay. All right, anything else, board members, on the architectural updates?
Nope.
Other site aspects? Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Where to next, Brian?
Well, I submitted the O&M plan. It was pretty detailed. I don't know if you want me to bore you with that, but happy to if you want.
Well, that would be only if you thought an O&M plan was boring.
Yeah.
So
I do.
I looked through it and it's very consistent with what we've done in the past.
I was going to say, just bring it up in case there's questions and we could easily go to a section, but does any board member have any question on the O&M plan?
Do we have mock-up panel called for?
Well, that's in the
It's not in
conditions.
the O&M plan.
I'm sorry, but somewhere.
That's in the conditions.
It would typically be a condition, yeah.
Jump. He's always so pushy.
All right, so O&M good as reference, Brian, then? No comments? So what's after that? On the packet was.
Draft conditions.
Okay.
Conditions would be the next thing to go to.
Okay,
That you should put up.
Yeah, I have some comments too, Chip.
You start.
Okay. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Greg, you got it?
Yeah, so I think to start throughout, as we've talked about on past, all the qualifiers should be removed. There's not as many as there used to be, but one, material respects, it should be all respects.
Hang on. Let me do these, Jeff, so I don't mess this up if I could. So we're
In number one, first sentence, few words in, should just be all respects, not all material anymore.
or just shall comply.
Yeah.
Right, I mean,
Either one.
yeah. Shall comply with, not substantially or, yeah, in material aspect.
Yeah, and there's a couple of those throughout, I think in 4.
Yeah.
But so you can find those. Also in 1, I think you can, or not, I think, you should remove the second and third sentences. That's by the bylaw that we retain authority for minor modifications. It's not
Right.
necessarily.
Right, Greg. I'm sorry.
Number 1, second and third sentences. The board retains jurisdiction to approve minor amendments that do not materially alter. That's not by this decision that we retain.
I think it is. That's historically what the board has done. I don't
True.
think that's always been in there. I don't think there's.
But
anything-
historically, I mean, when I was in the Navy, that was one of the worst answers you could give. Why do you do it? Because it's the way we've always been done. Can
I
we
don't think
point to an actual, like, isn't that in minor modification, isn't in having to notice a modification as minor or major, as we call it?
But Greg, are
Well,
you,
Jim, I'd rather, let's let Brian, we don't need to defend the applicants.
I'm not defending it. I'm just saying that we need to probably reinforce it because the person that's going to read this, even though they might be on the hook, because it's somewhere else, basically, is really, you're just like given a second notice that this exists.
So my concern with things that are already in the bylaw or in statute are, I don't want to somehow create a discrepancy between two things.
I understand.
And they are on notice for complying with the law. So if we're going to use the logic, oh, we need to put them on notice, we would really have to put the whole bylaw in here.
Yeah, I don't know where that might be in the bylaw.
So essentially, so if it's not, and Brian, we could even talk about this.
Yeah, I know
Maybe
it's not,
research
it's not in the bylaw. It's not, that's why it's always been put in.
So can you, and this might not be for now, then to me, that raises the full question then. Under what authority have we in the past been saying what is a minor modification and what's not?
Because you're retaining jurisdiction to do that.
But do we have the authority when it's a major this is not for now. This is that just
Because
raises the question if it's.
Major modifications statutorily require a public hearing and notice, but if it's minor modification.
No, understood, but then wouldn't we need the authority outside of here to say, hey, we don't need to follow this law because we think it's minor?
No, you need to follow the law if it's major, and someone could always challenge that. I mean, if they wanted to, that's up to the person to challenge that if they want to. But that's, you can boards retain jurisdiction all the time over matters.
No, understood. I think that's all right. I'm fine for now. I think this is a different conversation. I don't want to make this go longer than it.
We got to see if it's defined in the laws somewhere.
Yep, but point taken, Greg. I get it.
Yep, and we don't need to belabor the point.
Yep.
And then there was just one other one.
Substantially gone right there.
Number 8. This kind of goes to the same point. I think we removed it in the past too, where the very end, kind of that last clause, which may be adjusted by the board as a minor modification.
Right here, Greg?
Yeah.
Yep, you're right about that. I'm looking at another one. Thank you. Okay.
I'll let Chip.
And Jim, number 5 has the mock-up panel in case you didn't
Thank you.
notice that. Yeah. Anyone else as he goes through here? We got surety on the landscape because you never know when it's going to be at that point, so that's good. May need that. About construction limitations and parking and then the affordable components. Those are pretty boilerplate, Brian, so.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we got the unit count proper. Jeff, if you could just confirm this, or Peter. 23 units, 11 2-bedroom, 12 1-bedroom. 2 of the 2 bedrooms are affordable and 2 of the 1 bedrooms are affordable. Is that unit count right, Jeff? You double checking it on your plan? Should be on the cover sheet of your plan.
Yeah, one second. So it's 12 1-bedroom, 11 2-bedroom.
Yep.
1 office, 23 residential
Yep.
total.
Yep.
Yep, we're good.
Okay.
And it has the 25% in there, right?
18%.
I mean, 18, I'm sorry.
And that's the, yeah. So 23 times 18% is 4.14. The bylaw rounds it to the nearest whole number. 4 affordable units total.
Mhm.
Yep.
In the sequencing. I mean, you've really trimmed on, all of your projects, the conditions that, that are no longer required by the fire department. And, they used to go on for pages forever and ever. So,
Just go on the plan.
yep.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would, if we go forward with this, that these would be the conditions that we would have agreed upon for future reference.
Okay. I'm just going back to my notes. Sometimes I'd mark things that, hey, remember this for a condition, and I didn't bring anything. I'm just double checking. Anyone else have any other comments, or are you okay, board members? All right. Thanks, Brian. And then I think there's a construction schedule in here.
Mhm. So again, with Mr. Chairman, not for tonight, but I would like, when we have a shorter meeting at some point, I'd like to discuss the need for this. Because I can only remember like one job coming back to us saying that they're different than the construction schedule they presented. Right, we're not holding anybody to it. So I'd like to not discuss it tonight, but I wonder if this is an exercise we need on everyone, or whether it's just needed on specific projects. Like when we're working near a school or something that's site specific and necessary to really understand when they're going to be doing different things. Future topic, if we can put a note to this to discuss when we have an easy night, which may not be any in the future.
Yeah, let's make a note of that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Good luck.
Okay, but any questions on this schedule? Again, I mean, 175 North comes to mind because it was near Galvin. We had to think about kids.
Correct.
Yeah. In this one being where it is on Salem Street, it may not be as, those aspects. Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm saying,
Yeah.
with sidewalks closed, et cetera.
But we still have the public to worry about too, though, not just kids.
But they do the police, I'm not gonna, we could get off the rails. Harvard Mills, they gave us a construction schedule. They coordinated with the police. They've shut down a street. That's never been, that was never on the construction schedule.
Right.
Okay, so again, rails and staying focused, but I think this may be an exercise that isn't always necessary.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess my only question with this one is, and it's just a question, is do we want to put some guidelines around delivery times, being that all the UPS trucks come out and buy there in the morning? I know we didn't do it on the other one, unfortunately, on the other two. Unfortunately, it didn't come to mind. And maybe say no, I don't. It's just
Construction deliveries, you mean?
Yeah, construction deliveries. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're going to be, Greg, I think it's a great point, well taken, but I think they're going to be able to get off site enough because there's enough parking. So they're going to want to get their trucks onto the site for deliveries. They're not going to be sitting in the road like 175 North was, or like a project that has all sorts of underground parking and no open parking. They've got space around this building.
Chip, let me ask you, did you want them to come back for a minor modification for the schedule change? I mean, is that something we want to deal with, or?
Do we really?
No.
No, I don't know that we do, which is again why I'm
Yeah.
questioning the importance of this on
But if it's
many
like
of
a-
our projects. I
if
think
it's
there
a-
are some that it's very important.
Yeah,
And
if
then
it's a
got many, it's not, and it's just
the whole year
become,
out, then I understand, yeah.
yeah.
Well, if it's something that we can hold them accountable to, then that makes a difference. If there's nothing we can do about it, then it's kind of pointless. I agree with you on that.
Well, I mean, they always have to, I think it's important when we have interesting or difficult site situations that it may be very important for.
Mhm.
And that they should, like 175 North when it was near the Galvin, if it was getting stretched out and they had to keep sidewalks closed or open or deliveries, that is a minor modification that's important and necessary and good for us to know. However, like this one, other than Greg's good comment on deliveries, I don't know that it matters whether they get done in May, June, or July.
No, it doesn't, but I think the other thing that we've talked about in the past would be like demolition. When would that happen? You know, what the season is, or even wheel washing, because, you know, the trucks are coming in on a dirty site basically, and you don't want that dirt going up and down the street and clogging all the drains, or at least put them in responsible positions to clean the drains or whatever, however it's the board in the future decides they want to handle it. So I agree with you that in most cases, we probably don't need it. There are some cases, case by case, where in fact, it sort of keys up the discussion a lot.
I would agree.
Yeah, well, I
Well,
think
we
it
also-
helps the public out too, because I mean, if people live nearby and they're saying, you know, okay, what's going on? They can go down to the building inspector's office and say, oh, they're gonna be digging up, you know, whatever on, you know, this is the time frame. So it lets the public kind of know what to expect, so there's not a lot of questions.
One other thing, we have 3 projects in this one little area, so they should try to keep by their schedule. Otherwise, they might all be digging at the same time, or traffic might be a horror show. You might want to think about that too. So they might want to keep to their schedule. If we pass all 3 projects, then they all start digging at the same time, it might kind of clog up that road. So just a point, I don't know, just throwing it out
Yep.
there.
All right. All right, I think we're all set on the schedule.
I think we've got, yeah, beat it
Back on the rails. Okay. Anything else, Brian? Maybe on mute, Brian.
Sorry, keep doing that. I said, I'm happy to go over the request of relief if you'd like. Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Yes, I have the original decisions here. If you just want to go through.
The applications.
Yeah, I mean, the applications, yeah.
There are 3 special permits, Brian, right?
Yep, hang on, I just have to kind of find my bearing here. Okay. So the first application is for a special permit under 19032 and site plan approval under 19045 to allow the 23-unit garden apartment with office as shown on the plans. So that's the underlying use relief.
While we're here, Brian, I always get confused at this. What are the dates of the final site plan and the final architectural plans, and who are they from?
Okay, so Chris, are you there? Can you give the final revision date on your plan, if you wouldn't mind?
Yes, on the civil site plan, it's March 5th, 2021.
And Jeff, I think yours is today, correct?
Yesterday.
Correct.
Okay. And Chip, do you want the landscape plan too? That's gonna, I assume that's gonna get modified a little bit to deal with the issues that you had with the key. Is that necessary?
Well, I guess we don't have a final, so it will be conditioned.
Yeah.
I mean, it will just be when it is. And I guess that will go in the decision, Brian, more importantly than anything else.
Okay.
As long as it's correct in the decision.
Mm-hmm.
So I leave that to you and Dave.
That's fine. The second requested special permit is pursuant to 190-32.1, allowing reductions or alterations to the dimensional requirements under 190-32D in Table 2 of the bylaw. We're asking to reduce the front side and rear yard setbacks as shown on the site plan. And also, can you, it might be easier on this one. Chris, can you bring that up on the screen, the site plan? Might be helpful to have that,
Sure.
if you wouldn't mind.
Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Yep. So we're just reducing the setbacks. I want to point out that one of these spaces is it's a requirement that the parking should not be in the front yard. One of these spaces is just outside of the building. Just in front of the building, this little space here. And so what we've asked is that the required setback be reduced to 15 feet for that purpose, to make sure that that does not extend into the required front yard, so it stays in compliance with zoning. That's a requirement. We've asked to, it's interesting, when we first applied for this, it qualified as a mid-rise apartment because it was 4 stories or more. And that's allowed to be 50 feet under the bylaw. So we did not, at that point, we did not need any relief for height. But since we took a story off the building, now it's a 3-story building. So technically under the bylaw, it's categorized as a garden apartment. And the maximum height on a garden apartment is 35 feet. So now we're requesting a height of 37. So the building height has obviously come significantly down, but just for purposes of how it's classified under our bylaw, it needs relief of a couple of feet. We're also asking for, to the extent necessary, altering table 2, footnotes 6 and 7 of the bylaw. What they do is, let me go to the site plan. Hang on a second. This, we kind of went over this early on, that this property abuts 128. And interestingly, 128 is zoned single residence. I had a detailed conversation with town council on this. Tom and I have never seen a highway zone, but 128 is zoned in our town. I think it was a mistake how it happened when they adopted it. It never was zoned. I looked at historically, it was always just not zoned. And Tom Mullen even questions the authority to zone it. Him and I had a long discussion on this, but where it is a requirement of a setback and or a buffer strip from a residential district. And to the extent that that zoning is valid, we just want to make sure that we're covering it and saying that the board is waiving the requirement to have a buffer strip from 128 because we want to be able to have the parking work properly. So that's that form of relief. And then, any other reductions to allow it to be constructed accordance with the site plan, which is something that we always ask for as a belt and suspenders. Then the third special permit relates to, is pursuant to 190-36C of the bylaw, reducing the requirements and standards of off-street parking and loading. I want to be clear that we are not asking for any relief to reduce or go below the number of parking spaces that are required. We're meeting that requirement. Section 190-37 we're asking for relief from that to allow 16 of the parking spaces to be 8.5 feet wide, as shown on the site plan. 190-37D of the bylaw is a requirement that aisle widths be 24 feet. We talked about that. We're asking to reduce that to 22 because of the way the building extends out back now. Section 190-37E1 of the bylaw. There's a provision that parking spaces need to be set back 7.5 feet from the building. We meet that requirement, but it's kind of, Chris and I talked a little bit about this. And again, it's just a belt and suspenders because we have the overhang here now. There's some support pillars that, someone could say, well, that's part of the building and it's not 7.5 feet. So that's why we've asked for that relief, just to be prudent, make sure we're dotting the i's and crossing the t's. And then finally, we're also under 190-37I, we're allowing the width of the driveway to be greater than would normally be allowed under that provision. The requirement is 30 feet, contemplates possibly 40. We go wider because, Chris, can you blow that up? Because of the geometry of the way the roadway widens there to make it a proper turn in and exit. Chris really needed to widen that driveway. So we've asked for part of the special permit under 190-36C to allow for that driveway to work properly. And then any other relief required under 190-36C.
How wide do you anticipate that driveway being? I don't know. Is there a measurement there?
I'm sorry. Oh, Chris, you want
Sure,
to?
I can explain. This is the dark line that you see here on our side of the street. And the dark line on this side of the street is the right of way. And as you approach the intersection of Pleasure Island here, the traveled way really widens out. Look at all these lanes, you know, as you come down to the lights here. So the traveled way is practically on top of the right of way. And, you know, we need to match the, you know, our roundings here need to match up with the gutter line of the street. So it's an unusual case where the right of way line is so close to the gutter line. Normally, you know, the gutter line is out here and these roundings are way out here. So, you know, the driveway width is not an issue. But if you measure a driveway width from this point here to this point here, it's about 51 feet.
And that's where the measurements are taken, and that's why you need that relief. Okay, thank you for that explanation. Okay, and that's it, Brian?
Yeah, we don't want to have what happens at Shaw's with people blowing tires out and losing wheels as they're coming in and coming out, so.
I've never had it occur, but I hear others do, so.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, let's not repeat that. All right, any other questions, board members? On the material presented? On the relief requested? Any other aspect of the project the board feels we need more clarity or information on before we proceed?
Just a quick question. Brian, someone had mentioned adding a condition for the elevator vent, that you had discussed that. Is that something, did I miss that?
Oh, I had that on my list, Greg. To make sure we put in the key and then the elevator vent, that the board will reserve the right to review.
Okay.
And approve that.
Okay.
And then the copper roof, would we make a plan on the note on the architectural plans that it's going to be preserved and not go patina. I think that was the requirement.
Anything else, board members? All right, while you contemplate, I will open up the public testimony, perhaps for the last time, where we are with this project. So if you do have a comment or question, please raise your hand in the Zoom meeting, and I will call on you in the order that I see them. Susan Wetmore. Welcome. You can unmute yourself if you want.
Good evening, Susan Wetmore, 12 Sunset Drive. As you know, I've been following the meetings on this particular project, and I do appreciate the changes that have developed over that time, including eliminating the 4th floor, reducing the amount of 2-bedroom apartments, and the overall look of the project to be more in keeping with the neighborhood. I still aren't exceptionally comfortable with the raising of the 4 feet. I can't really see how that looks, but I will, you know, admit that you guys know more, and if you think that that's going to work, I agree. Also, I want you to understand that the concerns I and others in this neighborhood have on the increased traffic and overflow parking are a result of the unique design of this neighborhood, which is comprised of Walton Street, Sunset Drive, Renee Drive, Old Colony, and Jessica Lane. This neighborhood was built off an existing part of Walton Street in the mid-70s. The plans for this subdivision included approximately 100 homes and at least 2 additional egresses. The exits were never completed. Whether that was a town employee or an elected board or an appointed board that made that decision, I don't know. But the town is really responsible for this neighborhood's current predicament, which is why I continue to make various boards aware of this situation, which is a constant concern for us. Traffic has increased everywhere for everyone. I understand that. And I know the traffic analysis done for this project claim increases won't be detrimental. I also know that has been said before about past projects, but has not been the reality for us after those projects were built, most notably Market Street. But in our location, traffic is not only an annoyance, it's a safety issue. For residents not to be able to leave in an emergency or for safety vehicles not be able to reach this neighborhood is a real concern. We saw this happen twice this year earlier, with trucks jackknifing and blocking our ability to exit. I trust no one on the board enjoys the reality of being trapped. I understand 33, or I might be off by 1 or 2 parking spaces for this project is within the permitted amount for this size development. I also heard from listening to the meeting from your last meeting that similar apartments in cities have approximately 1 car per unit. I just want to say I don't think it's realistic to assume this project will only have 1 car per unit, since Salem Street is directly off the highway and far from any public transportation. Since there is no parking on Salem Street and Walton Street is an older, narrow street and our only exit, my question is, what is the solution for residents or for guests of that apartment building with parking their cars if the lot is full? And thank you for the consideration of all the things that you've done over these weeks.
Thank you. Are you hoping someone can provide an answer to that question this evening? Ms. Wetmore,
Pardon me?
are you hoping someone can provide an answer to that question this evening?
I would
Or
love
is
to.
it more,
No, it's not rhetorical.
Okay,
It's now it's the end, and it's really what I'm wondering what would happen.
so Brian, can you or one of the team
Sure. I mean, you know,
contemplate that
yeah.
question? Yes.
yeah, I commend Sue, for a nice presentation and statement. I understand, unfortunately, the predicament. It was very well stated by her on Walton Street and what happened down there. And it's a shame, but, unfortunately, I guess, it's not the owners of the properties on Salem Street. I actually looked at the history that Salem Street's been zoned business right out of the gate from the 1920s. And that zoning was in place before Walton Street and all those other streets were even put in, which is kind of interesting fact. Hopefully, maybe someday the town can step up and provide a separate means of egress for that subdivision, as Sue said, was promised years ago, and they can complete what was supposed to happen. But as far as the question goes on the parking, we don't, we meet the zoning parking requirement, and Bob had testified, my client, that in his other projects, he traditionally does not have an issue with, one per unit. And in fact, this started out all 2-bedroom units, if you remember. So now we have approximately 50% 1-bedroom, which is even going to, reduce the parking requirement. So, these people, our position is that there won't be overflow parking. And if there is, then, they're going to have to find somewhere where they can legally park. And I'm sure if something happened on Walton Street, the neighbors are gonna, let Lieutenant Anderson know, as he said that they should, and they would deal with it.
So the owner has no plan, because I do understand that a lot of apartment buildings only have 1 car, and I would think that in other parts of Wakefield near public transportation, that's a reality.
Yeah.
I've lived here 35 years. It's very difficult to walk anywhere because, so I just don't think it's realistic. I know that I'm just wondering if the owner has suggestions, or are they going to tell, there's not going to be parking that is designated for each unit. It's just going to be, it's up to them. And there is no parking on Salem Street. Am I correct?
I don't see any parking out there, Sue. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, Bob, do you want to provide any insight for Sue? I think he's trying to unmute. There you go.
Hi, Sue, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, well, as far as all of our properties go, for whatever reason, we have a combination of 2s and 1s, and it seems every one of our projects they end up 1 car per unit. That's what it averages out. Some people have no cars. And it just averages out that we have even like some leftover spaces within the property that, even though we don't allow people just to go into any spot, they're all reserved spots for specific units. Sometimes we let the tenants work it out amongst each other. If somebody wants to use someone else's spot for the night, if they're not using it, you know, things like that. And it seems we've never really had any problem with, you know, any kind of overflow or guest parking where it's an issue where they're in someone else's spot. You know, once in a great while, we might have an issue, but then, you know, we have a tow company that comes out, and if someone's not supposed to be where they are, then we tow them. But, you know, we kind of really never had any issue with it. And with this, with 23 units and having 36 spots, this is more than we have on any of our other projects. So I don't see it being a problem for us.
Well, I hope it's not, but I just want you to understand as the owner that it would be very difficult. Walton Street is narrower than the rest of the development because it's an older street. And they are smaller driveways, they're older homes. So people, their residents park on both sides of the street. And it's very difficult to get in and out now because we only have one exit, that there's no other parking available to them. And I just, you know, it would be a difficult situation for us, but I just think it's a unique situation that we have, that we're on a main road near a highway, not really walkable to anything and not near public transportation. So, you know, thank you for your response. I hope it works out that way. I have my doubts. I've kind of been through some of these other, you know, projects. So thank you for your, you know, addressing it anyway.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Any other member of the public? Not seeing any other hands being raised, so we will close it to public testimony for the evening, and perhaps to the project if, unless there's anything new to cover here, board members.
No, if it's your desire, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to make some motions.
All right, let me just make sure we're clear on voting members here. Chip, you're caught up. You had caught up on that December one you missed, so
Correct.
I think we're in place with the 5 regular voting members. Okay. All right.
Good.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant the special permit and site plan approval pursuant to section 190-32 and 190-45 of the Wakefield zoning bylaws, allowing a 23-unit garden apartment with an office as shown on the final site plan dated 3/5/2021 and the final architectural plans from Phoenix Architects dated 3/10/2021. And to go along with that, there'll be a number of findings, and the findings will be, there are 3 different special permits. These findings will go along with all the permits, so we don't have to go through them every time. So we found that the requested, that the use that was requested is listed in the table of use and regulations, and that it requires a special permit in this district. And that's why the application was made. 2 is the requested use is essential and desirable to the public convenience and welfare. There's a dire need for housing. Also, there's a dire need for affordable housing in the town of Wakefield and the surrounding area. 3, the requested use will not create or add to undue traffic congestion, as we heard from the Traffic Advisory Committee, or unduly impair pedestrian safety. 4, the requested use will not overload any public water, drainage, or sewage systems or any other municipal systems from such an extent that the requested use or any developed use in the immediate area or in any other area of the town will be unduly subjected to hazards affecting health, safety, and the general welfare. That comes from all the communications back and forth with DPW and the engineering department. 5, the requested use will not impair the integrity or character of the district or adjoining districts, nor be detrimental to the public health, convenience, or welfare. 6, the requested use will not, by its addition to a neighborhood, cause an excess of the particular use that could be detrimental to the character of said neighborhood. The use will put a vacated or blight property to a beneficial use. We also reviewed this section of the bylaw, which is pertinent in part, that states, in reviewing a site plan, the special permit granting authority, us, and other applicable agents shall consider, among other things, the following. So that's engineering, DPW, fire, police, all of whom have had correspondence on this. Convenience and safety of vehicular and pedestrian movement within the site in relation to adjacent streets, properties, and improvements. Adequacy of the methods of disposal for sewage, refuse, and other wastes, and methods for surface and stormwater drainage. And provisions for off-street loading and unloading of vehicles incidental to the servicing of the buildings and related uses on the lot or tract. And we considered all of the above criteria, and we are satisfied. I believe we're satisfied, or the motion would think that we are satisfied with all the criteria being met.
Conditions?
That's it. And the conditions, as I stated earlier, when we did all the conditions, that the conditions that we've already gone over and presented would be part of that as well. So it goes findings, conditions.
Final
And
plan. Yeah.
we're good.
Okay, that's your motion.
That
Second.
is.
Do I have a second?
I seconded it.
Thank you, Amy. Any discussion on the motion? All right, regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that's unanimous.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant a special permit pursuant to section 190-32.1 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw, allowing reductions and or alterations to the dimensional requirements under section 190-32D and table 2 of the bylaw related to a 23-unit garden apartment with an office as shown on the final site plan and final architectural plans, including but not limited to the following. A, reducing the required front, side, and rear setbacks to be that as shown on the final site plan. B, reducing the height requirement to allow an increased height of 37 feet as shown on the final site plan. And C, to the extent necessary, altering table 2, footnotes 6 and 7 of the bylaw that requires a rear and or side yard setback from a residential district of 15 feet, of which 10 feet shall not be paved, and require a screening and buffer strip by completely eliminating said requirements. And D, any other reductions and or alterations from the requirements of section 190-32D and table 2 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw to allow the project to be constructed as shown on the final site plan and final architectural plans. The findings are the same made by the previous special permit, and any reductions or alterations that were just mentioned will enhance the project as a whole, and that the final site plan and architectural plan comply with all other requirements of section 190-32 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw.
Second.
Thank you, Amy. Any discussion on that motion? Same voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that too is unanimous.
All right. Last special permit. I move that we grant the special permit pursuant to section 190-36C of the Wakefield zoning bylaw, reducing the requirements and the standards for off-street parking and loading under Article 7 of the bylaw as follows. I also just want to note that there is no reduction in the number of parking spaces throughout this whole thing, but there are some manipulations. So A is section 190-37C of the bylaw, allowing 16 of the 33 parking spaces to be 8.5 feet wide, as shown on the final site plan, as compared to 9. Under section 190-37D of the bylaw, allowing the width of the aisles to be as shown on the final site plan. C, under section 190-37E1 of the bylaw, allowing the setback of off-street parking areas to be closer than 7.5 feet to the building as shown on the final site plan. D, section 190-37I of the bylaw, allowing the width of the driveway serving parking facilities to be shown on the final as the size on the final site plan. And E, any other necessary reductions in the requirements or standards for off-street parking and loading under Article 7 of the bylaw related to the project as shown on the final site plan and final architectural plans. So for this, the findings are the same, the conditions are the same, but we also found that the application standards for off-street parking and loading under Article 7 proves to be a couple spots infeasible, and the reductions are supported by evidence of infeasibility due to the lack of suitable land, design considerations, and the other factors, all of which we've talked about and heard about, so that the granting of such special permit will not adversely affect the health, safety, convenience, character, and welfare of the neighborhood and the district of the town. And furthermore, we looked at that and determined that the location of the structure will not restrict visibility in any such way or hinder the safe entry or exit of a vehicle from any driveway of the street or restricted visibility at a corner of any two streets. So that's along with the findings, and then the conditions are as already presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Same voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
and I vote yes. That too is unanimous. All right. Thank you, Brian and team, for the presentation
you.
and the application. Good luck
Thank
with the
you.
project. And
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
have a good night. Brian, Brian, sorry, you're on mute.
Yes,
I stamped the materials presented tonight, but we'll need a formal
yeah, so if I can
hard
do
copy
this,
so I can stamp
yeah,
them, you know.
so if I can do this for you, Chris, is Chris still here? If not, I'll get him, but Peter and Jeff, could you send hard copies to Gail on these final plans from tonight?
No problem. We'll get the hard copy there.
Actually, I just hold off a little bit. The next day, I've got to work out those changes that the board wants on the materials. So once we get
Okay.
that done, Mr. Chairman, I'll send those down.
Okay,
Okay.
and then Gail, let me know if gotta put the final stamp on them. Yep.
I will.
Yep,
All the
okay.
materials packet, everything, even the draft conditions, everything that was discussed should be in the file.
Yep, they're all there and I stamped them. I didn't stamp the plans final. It sounded like there were maybe a couple changes, so.
Yep.
Yeah, just let me know, Gail, and we'll get the
Okay.
final one stamped so that for the record and for
Okay,
the building inspector and so forth going forward. All right, thank you. Okay, moving on. Next continued hearing, 21-29, 30 and 31, M-Bar Wakefield LLC at 500 Main Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail representing M-Bar Wakefield LLC. Bob Santinelli is, I think, here somewhere. Hi, Bob. There he is. He just popped up. We wanted to kind of, keep the board updated. I think we went to the Traffic Advisory Committee. I think we advised you of that at the last meeting. We just received a memo from the TAC, I believe, yesterday. I don't know if the board's had an opportunity to get that yet or not.
Just, yes.
Yeah.
Just within the
So
last couple days, yes.
we don't expect you to go through that in detail, obviously, because you just got it and you didn't get it on Friday. We just wanted to let you know that Bob is pretty much in agreement with everything that's being requested from the town's peer review consultant. At your meeting and at the TAC meeting, there was discussion, there was input from the public on, concerns with taking a left-hand turn out of this project as you come out onto Main Street. Just trying to get out and take a left and then possibly backing people up that want to go right to cut across. So the suggestion was by VHB that they would need more data and more detailed review to make a determination on that. Or in the alternative, just restrict it to a right-hand turn out of Main Street. And Bob is fine with doing a right-hand turn. And originally we had concern that, potentially the Envision project could result in a barrier there that would, it could be a problem that now people would, not be able to get back to Greenwood. But Bob participated in some of those Envision meetings, and he discovered that there's going to be, in any event, a left-hand turn on Armory Street. So people will have an escape path if they don't want to go downtown. So I think, Bob, you might want to add to that, but I think if I'm speaking correctly for you, if you could confirm it that you're comfortable with that, the right-hand turn out only, to limit it to that.
So we pointed out this, the Envision calls for median strip in front of 500 Main Street. That's this site. And they do have a left-hand turn. In addition to the one at Armory Street, they have a left-hand turn into the parking lot at the Civic Center. So there are two left-hand turns that people will be able to make at some time in the future if and when they put that median strip in. And if Envision gets off the ground, we will only be able to make a right-hand turn anyway, so we're in compliance with that at this point. Right.
And then the other thing that Matt Keeley from VHB had requested was that he thinks that the 3 queuing lane for the ATM is going to be fine.
Right.
I'm sorry?
4. Did you say?
Yeah,
3?
4, but he's concerned that the fourth car might result in a little bit of a stick out onto the sidewalk. So he wants some mitigation. He directed us to work with Bill Renault to come up with some markings and signage to deal with that. So we're fine with that too. So, we really just wanted to let you know when you have a chance to look at that memo that we're in agreement with everything that's requested. So if you're wondering, you don't have to, because Bob's agreed to address what was requested in that memo.
So plans as needed would be adjusted to
Yes.
accommodate signage, markings, whatever is called out, whatever your team comes up with, would be then subsequently be reflected on the plans, which is what we would want to see. In
Yes.
addition to anything that we might come up with once we fully review it.
100%. Correct. Yeah. One of the things, we've worked out the subsurface issue with the drainage pipe with Bill Renault that we've got a structural engineer. Bill will want a condition from the board that when the building is built, he gets to review and approve the structural design on the foundation in that area, and we're fine with that. Bob's willing to invest to have a structural engineer and to dig deep to make sure that it's the building is safe and that the town's culvert will be safe. So we're fine with that. And then, the only other thing we really wanted to have a little discussion with tonight with the board was that there was a request to provide some landscaping in the interim on the vacant lot next door, or some type of control that it's not going to be, where Bob doesn't want to sit on a vacant lot, but I think there's a concern with the board that you don't want that vacant lot to become blighted and just overgrown and kind of a dumping ground. So Bob is happy to accommodate, obviously, but we just want some time because we really don't want to do that until the bank building is built, because that's probably going to be a staging area while construction is going on. There might be, Bob's talking to a lot of people about that lot. So, maybe in the next few months, there might not be a need for it anyways. So we're just going to a little time on that. And then.
So if I can, that I'm not in favor of that. Because, so that whole, I'm the one that's been pushing this probably as much as anybody, and as I look at the site plans, there's no finish edge to that whole side. There's no vertical granite curb. There's no nothing. So I get the point of having it be a staging area, but landscape usually goes in at the far end of the project. So that doesn't really fly with me, that we can't put trees or something along that edge because it's a staging area. I'm more concerned about that edge not having finishes. I mean, it doesn't have vertical granite curb. I don't know what could go in next door that would not allow you to landscape a strip 5 or 10 feet into that, unless you're trying to connect the two properties. And that's a different subject. However, you know, knowing how that's going to be left, whether it's going to be fenced, whether it's going to be grassed, you know, whatever. I get that you don't want to spend a lot of money on it, but the edge of 500, there's no reason why that can't be finished. I don't understand why that can't be finished and planned for, unless you guys can convince me that it can't be.
Well, I think something could be done there, but what I'm saying is that that edge probably won't be done until construction of the building was completed. Because that
That's telling me, is that telling me that the parking lot and all the other curbing's not going to be done till the building's done either?
No, but you know, one of the things we want to do is we want to keep trucks and you know, off of Main Street. So, you know, we've got the perfect situation there because we have a vacant lot.
Right. So in order to finish and take occupancy, that edge needs to be done. At that
And that's
point,
fine.
the building will be done.
That's fine. But what I'm saying is we don't want to do that edge first.
I never said first.
Okay, then I
Just said
misunderstood.
before the project's complete.
Yeah, then I misunderstood. And then what are you anticipating would happen on that lot in the interim? You know, would you want it loamed and just seeded?
I want you guys to tell me what you want to do.
Bob, do you have
I
any
just
thoughts?
don't want it to look like an empty lot.
Yeah.
Honestly, and I know Jim might take offense, I don't want it to look like the church lot. Right, up at the other end of town. I mean, I think it'd be great if we filled it with something immediately and you came back with plans and you didn't have to do anything. But if it's 2 years down the road, I don't think it's a great look for the town to have a metal secure fence around a site because you're worried that somebody's going to go trip on something in there, or there's debris left over from the building coming down or something like that. I think you need to present how you're going to finish that as part of this project. And it can be as simple as loam and seed, but then you got to think about how is that going to grow, and are you going to put an interim sprinkler system in so it doesn't look like a blighted site. That's all. Doesn't have to be crazy fancy, but I think you need to think about how you're going to leave it when 500's done. Okay.
Yeah, Bob, do you have any questions or you want to add to anything?
He might be frozen.
I think he's frozen.
He's not that old. He hasn't gone down to his own storage, has he?
Nope. Bob, you're on mute now.
A minute.
Am I unmuted now?
Nope, there you go, Bob. You're good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so we have thought about that. We have thought about just looming and seeding it, maintaining that. We thought about from a environmental perspective using mulled road chips. Forget the exact name of the term, but it's basically recycled highway material that basically makes it look actually like parking. So we haven't decided what we want to put in there. We will, if it's still vacant after we finish the bank building, put something in there within 60 days of finishing the bank building. We don't know when that's going to be because we don't know when the approval is going to be. So, and hopefully, as it was just suggested, that it's not even vacant by then. So, but we don't know what we don't know.
Nor do we.
Right.
So just as your plans progress, whatever you decide, and I wouldn't decide highway mix to make it look like a parking lot. I don't think that's what we want there. That you got to come up with what your plan's going to be and then follow through on it. That's all.
Okay.
But to not have a plan doesn't work for me.
But we don't need the plan tonight. So I
We'll
think
do
you,
that.
okay, point made. Let's move on. What's next?
I think we're fine. We're going to be back at the next meeting, and hopefully we're going to have, these changes to the plans in accordance with the TAC, and we're hoping to, we'll address your concerns on the landscaping, adjust the landscaping plan, and with a goal of trying to get this to a conclusion.
Where are we with signage, Brian? To ask Jim McBain's favorite question.
Well, Jim made comments on it in our sign. We're going to put together an updated sign package.
Okay. Are you going to have that for the next in 2 weeks?
Yep.
I made something that was, that Bob had sent to me. It was done in July of last year. So it's not very current, although it is based around what is proposed. And the comments I made were where there were missing elements or where they exceeded the requirements, understanding that this is not in the overlay district, but this is under the old signage code. So it's up to them, basically come back as noted here with a package that I can actually review.
Okay, so next time, that package, traffic, report, and adjustments to the plans accordingly, and any other updates to the plans.
Yes.
I mean, Mr. Chairman, am I wrong? We're done with architecture, right?
I believe so.
Okay, so if we're done with architecture and all they're doing is updating the site plan and signage, I mean, to me, it feels like we're at our last meeting on this.
Signage may impinge upon the architecture in that if you remember, basically, there's a big Santana sign on the corner and a big red boxy unit that sticks out front, all right? That's one huge sign because it's got corporate color to it, all right? So how that affects the overall appearance of this will be part of the signage discussion in the concept of what's there, the size of it, the layout of it, the general penetrations in it. And I think you're right, but I think there is some blowback coming and we all need to discuss it.
Okay.
Yeah, Chip, and I would like to at least discuss
Well, let me just
traffic
say
too.
Can you hear?
Yes, we can. Not anymore. You're on mute, Bob. I don't know how you're doing it, but
I don't either.
okay,
Now you're on again.
you're off. And you're on. I don't know what's going on with this.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Don't touch any buttons.
Well, it says mute up in the corner. I just want to say regarding the signage that Santander has agreed that whatever the legal requirements of the code in the town are for signage, they will comply with them. And when they come up with the final signage wording on there, we can just bring it up here at this meeting if we like. But they have an outside consultant who will design the signage in accordance with the requirements of the town at this point.
I think, Bob, what we'll do is we'll get that package put together and get it to Mr. McBain.
Fine.
I was nervous. You were breaking up and it was sounding like you were going to say that they've agreed to do whatever the board wants for signage.
I think that's what I heard.
For the record, yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, Greg, to your point, there's at least one. I don't think Chip's saying we're done tonight.
Oh, it sounded, he said this is our
No,
last
no, no,
meeting,
no,
so
no,
that's
no,
how
no.
I
The
took it.
next one, we're close. I mean, I think we should ask for an O and M. I think
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think we need to drag this thing on for
Well,
months and months and
I'm
months.
not sure what the board wants, is what John requires.
All right, Bob, your
Painful.
audio, yeah, your audio's still cutting in and out. Sorry. So for next time, Brian, my punch list is review the TAC and recommendations so the board can comment on it. Signage plan, if you've had an opportunity to do
Yep.
that and get Jim's input.
Mhm.
Any other plan updates to the site plan or architecturals accordingly. And perhaps draft an O and M and some draft conditions perhaps. To
Yes,
your
sir.
point, Chip, I don't think anybody's looking to drag it out longer than it needs to be. We perhaps are near the end, but it sounds like it's at least one more meeting to go through these.
Oh, I agree,
see where
but
we
it
are.
was to try to put a game plan together to get to the end.
And I think we just did.
Yep.
Does it sound like we got it covered, team?
This is
And Brian?
should
Yeah.
probably have a construction schedule.
Well, it is across the street from a school.
It does have an entirely empty lot next to it for staging
That's gonna be beautified with planting.
at the end.
That'll be conditioned potentially. All right, so we'd like to see a schedule again, because it does potentially affect the school right across the street.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk about timing of everything like that in the O and M with
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
everything's gonna happen.
I think that's a good point, and I think we've got a model for that because we dealt with that with the Bennett Street project.
Yep,
Yep,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
175
you also
around,
did it with 175.
and next to Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes,
like deliveries not during arrival time at school and departure, basics, but yes.
Hopefully the kids will be back in school by the time they get going on this.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
But, okay, so schedule, we'll put that on the list. So
And my
anything else for
point,
the
if we
list?
approve it quickly, they can get done before school starts again.
Hopefully.
Anything else for next time?
no,
Sounds like we have a good punch list.
Yep.
There wasn't, let's see, what did we get? There wasn't really much new material presented, right, tonight?
no, nothing.
Okay,
Just the TAC memo, which you have.
which we're gonna get into next time, so, so I'm not sure, there's public testimony really needed tonight. There was no new testimony provided. No new information, but next time there certainly will be, with all these updates as we previously discussed, so.
But with that being said, I move that we continue this to the 24th.
Second,
Any discussion? All in favor, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
yes,
Jim,
yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Greg,
yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks for coming tonight. Thanks for your time tonight,
Thank you.
everyone.
You.
Okay, next continued hearing, case 21-40, 41, and 42 at 62 Foundry, or is 62 Foundry Street LLC at 62 Foundry Street and 76 Foundry Street.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Brian McGrail representing the applicant 62 Foundry Street LLC. This is for the mixed-use development at 62 Foundry Street, where my client Brian Melanson, who is on, who's a principal of the LLC, and Chris Mulhern, who was our architect. To refresh your memory, Brian is proposing 58 units in conjunction with a restaurant use on the first floor. And we had an introductory meeting on this project at the last zoning board meeting. And it was determined that Chris would be back to present a little bit more detail in the on some of the architectural aspects and shading concerns that were brought up, and some of the features on the building that board members wanted him to look at. So as he always is, I think as Chris is very well prepared tonight, and to save time, I'm going to hand it right to you, Chris.
Thanks, Brian. Chris Mulhern for Harrison Mulhern Architects, I'm hoping that you can see this title sheet on my screen.
We can. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is the site. As Brian mentioned, we're proposing 58 residential units, including 10 affordable. We're proposing a mixed-use space of about 3,000 square feet and parking for 92 cars. Last time, the issues that were on our plate to talk about tonight were these 5. We were asked to strengthen the 5th floor cornice. We were asked to study the height and shadows in the context of the neighborhood. We were asked to produce a view from Walton Field about the continuity with adjacent developments and about the logistics of how a restaurant would work in the mixed-use space. So starting at the top with the Cornice issue, this is the view from Maple and Foundry Street that we showed you last time. The comment was that the cornice line at the 5th floor, right up here, was needed to be a little bit stronger, was a little bit weak. So here's the revised view showing the altered cornice at the top of the building. We increased the projection and the height. This partial elevation on the left has a little detail that shows the revised cornice. You can see that the projection is 6 inches and that the total height is 16 inches. This change will be carried all around the 5th floor of the building, as indicated by the partial elevation of the south side as shown on the right of this slide. Turning to the question of area building heights, we prepared this diagram. The Harvard Mills project is approved at 83 feet 7 inches to the roof deck and 87 feet 1 inch to the railing around the roof deck. The Harvard Mills garage, shown here, is about 35 feet tall. Our proposed building, shown in yellow, is 57 feet 8 inches to the main roof, with the corner tower element and the entry element projecting a bit higher. Our neighbor to the south, down here, is 128 Plumbing. That's 24 feet 8 inches high. And then across the street at 69 Foundry Street, 69 Foundry is approved at 57 feet to the main roof parapet with mechanical enclosures and tower elements projecting 4 feet above for a total of 61 feet. Once we had the heights, we looked at the shading. So this is a solar path diagram for our latitude. Each arc represents the path of the sun across the sky on a specific day of the year. The sun rises on the right in the east, the sunset on the left in the west. The black line at the top shows conditions at the summer solstice. The red line shows the conditions on the day we downloaded this diagram, which was the 2nd of September in 2016. The narrow black line next to it, shows the spring and fall equinox, and the blue line at the bottom shows the condition at the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year. Note that the time of day and the position of the sun at sunrise and sunset changes through the year, along with the maximum altitude reached at midday. So when we applied that sun path diagram to the heights that we had determined, we looked at the shadows cast by the various buildings. We looked at 3 times of day, 10 a.m., noon, and 4 p.m. So these results showing on the screen now are for the winter solstice. This is the shortest day of the year. Sunrise is at 7:10 a.m. So the sun has been up for about 3 hours by the left-hand diagram at 10 o'clock. The shadow of 69 Foundry is beginning to encroach on Foundry Street here. And the Harvard Mills shadow is also encroaching on Foundry up here. Maple Street, the block of Maple Street between Foundry and the tracks is in the shade from our proposed building. By noon, in this middle diagram, both of the buildings west of Foundry are shadowing the street. Well, the garage up here in our building are beginning to shadow the MBTA right of way. By 4 o'clock in the right-hand diagram, the entire area, the shadows from the entire area are across North Avenue, but it's 4 o'clock and it's the dead of winter, so it's only 15 minutes to sunset at 4:15. These are the diagrams for the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. Sunrise is at 5:07 a.m. So the day is nearly 5 hours old by 10 o'clock, the left-hand diagram. Our building and the Harvard Mills garage are still shading Foundry Street at this hour. By noon, the sun is nearly as high as it gets in the sky and is shining directly down Foundry Street right here. You can see that the azimuth angle shown in the diagram at the bottom is almost perfectly aligned with the street geometry. By 4 o'clock, 69 Foundry and the Harvard Mills buildings are shading Foundry Street, and the courtyard of our building has moved into the shadows as well. Sunset is still 4.5 hours away at 8:25 p.m. So what does all of this mean? Our conclusion is that the shadow impacts of the proposed building will be greatest on the unoccupied block of Maple Street between Foundry and the tracks. And that the Harvard Mills building and the 69 Foundry building both have a much more significant shadow impact on the area than this proposal. Turning to the view from across the tracks, this photo was taken on February 25th from the sidewalk on North Avenue, just outside Walton Field. 69 Foundry is visible here in the background on the left-hand side, with the Harvard Mills building and the garage on the right. The openings in this block tower indicate the additional levels of the building not yet built, with the top opening accessing the proposed roof deck. This rendering shows the proposed building from the same vantage point, but a little further back. The fence at Walton Field has been omitted from the foreground. You can see 128 plumbing on the left here with 69 Foundry behind. You can see the Harvard Mills garage and then the Harvard Mills building in the background on the right, and then the proposed building at 62 to 70 here in the center. Turning to the question of compatibility with the other major developments in the neighborhood, namely Harvard Mills and 69 Foundry, the principal issue in our view is the exterior lighting. We intend to illuminate the brick portions of the building with wall-mounted up and down type fixtures, and to install recessed downlights at the underside of the projecting canopies. The fixtures that we'll use will be the same type as are shown in this page from the Harvard Mills materials booklet. You see here an up and down light on the masonry, shown outlined here in red. You see a recessed downlight in the canopy outlined here in red. That's the same game that we're planning to play on the brick portion and canopy portions of 62 to 70. We're planning the same approach for the masonry piers at the corner of Maple and Foundry. In addition, we want to install LED ribbon lights to highlight the ACM cornice at the top of the building. These tiny fixtures will give a continuous line of pop to this top element. We want to light up against the metal here and down on the brick here. For the street and parking area, we had proposed the fixture shown here on 14-foot poles. In the interest of compatibility, we're proposing to switch the street fixtures to match the Wakefield standard street fixture shown on the next slide. This is the Wakefield standard street fixture. It features a 16-foot pole with an LED top fixture, the Bishop's Crook top piece, this bendy part up here, and the banner brackets on the back side. This fixture is being installed at 69 Foundry and also at the Harvard Mills project. I'm going to go back one. There's going to be some coordination needed here because the drawing I saw this morning indicates that there's a street fixture proposed for the northeast corner of the 69 Foundry, which would put it pretty much just opposite the one that's shown here. We're going to want to talk with the folks at Wakefield DPW and make sure that we have the right spacing on the fixtures for the street. We want to keep this type of fixture with a shorter pole for the back parking lot, the area along the MBTA right-of-way. Final topic on our little list was the question of restaurant logistics. As you know, we've designated the corner of Foundry and Maple as a mixed-use area, with the preferred use being a small restaurant. We do not have a restaurant operator in place, but we've done some preliminary thinking about how the space would organize for that use. Here's a concept diagram for a restaurant. The sizes of these elements are based on a restaurant we just finished in Beverly called Rossetti's. So the way this would organize is that the vestibule and host station would be at the corner, leading directly into the bar area. The bathrooms for the patrons would tuck in behind the bar. The dining space, the main dining space, would be located along the Foundry Street frontage with an operable wall connecting here out to the dining patio. The main line of the kitchen would be behind the main dining room, inboard, with the dishwashing space, the kitchen, the dishwashing here, the prep kitchen, and the behind the main line of the kitchen. Refrigeration, dry stores, and delivery entrance would be towards the east. The delivery entrance here at the top would take advantage of this corridor that connects the stair tower to the street by way of this door. The trash room would have a separate entrance from the sidewalk. It would be accessible from the inside of the restaurant, back of the house, right here, and also directly from the street here. We're exploring the possibility of a small basement area below this footprint. If feasible, that space would be used for the lockers, dry stores, secure storage, and the office, freeing up a little more of the ground floor footprint for additional dining space. This preliminary concept seats 54 in the main dining room, 46 in the outdoor area, and 18 at the bar, for a total of 118. Ideally, we would have a higher interior count, as in non-COVID times, the weather precludes the use of the outdoor area for a good portion of the year. That's all I've got. I'm happy to answer any questions that members of the board might have.
Board members?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have a question. That gym that you have laid out on the first floor, is that for members only, or is that like, well, not members only, but is it commercial, or is it for the people that live in the building?
We envision that as an amenity for the residents, but none of that is cast in stone at this point. It's going to be a modest facility. It's not a very big space. So,
okay. Yeah, I was just curious about parking and all that. If you open that up, you would think that that might squeeze.
No, I don't think so. I think it's going to be an amenity for the building. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
I just have a comment on, Chip, go ahead. On architecture, it goes back to what I was saying last time. If you go to just a picture of the front of the building, I'm moving my mouse like you guys can see it. The, I guess, overhang, cornice, whatever that is, the big gray one in the middle.
This guy
still, yeah, I don't know. It looks very fabricated. It just doesn't, maybe it's just purely my opinion. So if everyone else loves it, it just seems to me like if it's going to be, fabricated aluminum structure, it just seems very, this cheap thing hanging over windows, when I would rather see it when we're envisioning that street being buildings going all the way down, just take that off and go to the sky. I don't like that feature anyway, so maybe that's just what's driving my mind here, but it just seems to be, why highlight an overhang when we're envisioning the street being tall buildings all the way down?
Well, I hear what you're saying and understand exactly where you're coming from, Greg. Our attitude is that this cornice, this swoopy cornice, is marking this entry element of the building. And it's kind of waving its hand saying, hey, here we are, in a way that's fairly quiet, compared to similar buildings that we've seen in other towns. We didn't feel like we were going crazy here. We thought that we were doing something that was a relatively modest gesture to mark the front of the residential part of the building.
And I think the overhang above the door with the address would seem to do that when most people, it's not like here, there's a street coming down that's going to be from, I guess, perpendicular to Foundry that's going to be looking at this.
True.
So what are we really calling to that section when you're really going to be going parallel, when no one's going to be walking around looking up, oh, where's the entrance to this building? With the overhang and with the center of the building, it seems, it just looks like a cheap add-on that's not needed in this area.
I see. Our thought was that from like the corner of Albion and Foundry, when you look down the street between the Harvard Mills building and the Harvard Mills garage, that you would see two elements. You'd see this corner element where the restaurant wants to be, and you'd also see behind that this swoopy bit, which marks the residential entry point. Same way coming up from the south on Foundry, you would notice I'm talking about from 300 feet away, you would notice this piece as different and more important than the other pieces. That was our thought.
I guess my last point is I don't want to notice it. It looks like just a prefabricated aluminum thing hanging there that does nothing other than make it look like a new building that has the same exact feature that of another new building right behind it across the street where Tono is.
Okay, fair point.
I guess I don't mind it. I understand where you're coming from, but there's multiple levels of identification. There's a pedestrian level and there's the long view level basically on this. And I understand, I would have said the same that Chris did, basically. It's identifier of the entrance. And yeah, it's okay. So, maybe in some of the circumstance, it would be something that you would see, but I still don't mind it in this basically, because it gives that whole section, which is probably what, a quarter center section, basically. It gives it a little predominance basically. And in older buildings, they basically did this, we're just doing it with a different type of hat, so to speak, on this thing. So I really don't mind it. And the fact that these other cornices in a darker color that beefed up the rest of it, I think helps basically surround this at the same time and helps that whole thing. So, I mean, short of you bringing that upper level facade forward onto those brick pillars on either side, basically, I think this is a way to handle it, quite frankly. And I don't mind it.
I don't
I think
mind the
I think it gives the building a personality that a lot of the buildings we have been seeing aren't, you can't really differentiate a lot of them once you really step back. I think it's different. I like it.
I think to that point though, Mike, is Tono right behind us has the same exact feature.
Chris,
Different
could you
shape
go
on
to the
Tono,
rear
but-
elevation for a second?
Yes, sir.
So I have an interesting thoughts because, you know, we're on North Street, we're at the railroad tracks, we got a fence. How do you make this side of the building fun? How do you make it noteworthy? How do you, there's a lot of people viewing this. There's probably more people viewing this building from this angle than there is from the Foundry Street side. Is this what you want represented from North Ave, from the Fields, from the Galvin? Or is there something more we can do to, I'm going to use the word fun, but just to make it more creative? I don't know, do we, you know, do you do something in the fencing as cutouts? I don't know. It just seems to me like the back of every other building in the world here. And a lot of people are going to be viewing it from this side.
I think that's a good point, Chip. The feature that we're hanging our hat on, if you will, is this raised courtyard. Our thought was that between the trees in the middle of this, the high fences on the sides, the low fence in the middle, so that when you look at this building from across the way, you see activity up in there. There's grills, there's seating, there's folks out on this courtyard. That space flanked by these two tower elements and foregrounding the elevator element in the back. We thought that was pretty fun. I mean, I hear what you're saying, and you're right. I don't feel like this feels like a back to me.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, between the middle bit, these end bits with the more of a wood finish to them, there's a little bit of signage element here that calls attention to the restaurant from the track side. Feels like to me that there's a lot.
So let me get corny. Can we do does anybody think that you could have an element of some sort of sheet metal fencing here with cutouts, be it of suns, waves, birds, animals? I don't know, just something really different and unique.
I think that we could improve this long fence that's along the parking down low to make a big difference to this. The other thing that might work is to apply some graphic elements to the more solid parts, the privacy parts of the fence up here. And if those two things talk to each other, then you begin to have a secondary graphic language on the basic building elements that might address what you're talking about.
I think that, I mean, it just gives you an idea. You got a huge, what I would call artistic platform in that big long fence and the two fences you have up there.
Mm-hmm.
That could be fun.
I agree.
That somebody going in the train going into Boston would be like, did you see that building in Wakefield that had the whale on the second floor? I don't know, but that you know, that's different, that's not, you know, not like, oh, they put up another 4-story office, you know, apartment complex.
Understood.
Whimsical, Chip. Is the term you're looking for whimsical?
Whimsical, sure. It could, lots of
jazzy.
All right, so
yeah, I think this is a great opportunity to be whimsical or fun or really creative.
You know how we are. We'll spend our clients' money on anything.
Yeah.
So no, I think it's a great idea, Chip.
Like swoops over your vestibules. I mean, I don't know.
Okay.
No, I think it's a good idea. We'll take a look at the fence in particular and see if we can make it work better.
But I think it's beyond that, and I agree with you, Chip. It's flat. It's just flat at the rear compared with the front. There's more going on at the front, which doesn't get as much viewing as this will. This is getting, you know, 99% the view, and the other side is not. It's just a pedestrian area for everybody that lives there, but it's flat at the rear. And I look at the two gray towers basically and say, should something happen with them basically, or some other element come in? I'm not even sure that, to go to Greg's piece for a moment, I'm not sure that that swooped canopy in the middle is appropriate on this side. I see it on the other side, but you know, other than if you know that in fact it's part of an element front to back, and we as architects know it, but the pedestrian on the street doesn't know it, are not sure that that's appropriate there either. So I guess I'm with you. Something a little more fun and a little less flat needs to happen here. So it really makes a statement and sells itself on this side.
Okay.
right.
I understand what you're saying, and we will take a look at this to try to add interest to this elevation. I don't know, we haven't really talked about this, but the building is really a U shape in plan at this, from this aspect. So this tower element is set back 40 or 50 feet from the fence line or the back of the garage back here. So there is some come and go, some front to back come and go in this elevation, but I take your point that we can certainly look at the silver towers and give them a little more oomph, and we can certainly look at taking away the swoopy bit here, although our instinct as drawn here is to have that read as a through element from the other side.
That's the architect's point of view.
Yes, exactly.
Jim, I agree with you, Jim. It looks kind of like a Mass General kind of hospital in the back to me. I don't know if that's putting it right, but I don't know, institutional a little bit, school.
Well, you know, it's sometimes a way to deal with this, I suppose, and this might be way off to one side, was all the window frames were red. All right, on this side, basically, they just, you know, the window frames really stand out as opposed to just being, you know, those dark blocks.
Interesting idea.
You know, something that brings a little more color to it and really sort of breaks out from this. It doesn't mean that the whole building has to be that way, but this is a little more funky maybe or something.
I get what you're saying, and maybe that we can change up the color of the glazing in these tower elements to make them pop out and bookend the open space in the middle.
But you're correct. We don't see in this, even though it's three-dimensional, we really don't get the three-dimensional nature of the U-shaped court in this.
Right.
And so the dynamics is more as if you drew it straight on, basically, and it looks flat. It's not really flat, but it looks flat. So, you know, I think we need to do something else to jazz it a little bit, and then decide whether it's too much.
All right, so Chris, you and the team will take a look, maybe even bring a couple options or.
Yeah, we'll definitely take a look
ideas
at it.
Okay.
Bring you something to look at.
Okay, we're not going to design it here. So any other comments?
Yeah, Dave,
They're not repeating ourselves? Thank you.
I'm not, this is why I asked to see the side of the building. That was my request.
Perfect.
Just a quick question. I agree with everything that was just said. I wonder about the validity. Are trees that big going to be there? How realistic is the depiction of those size trees there? I'll leave it at that. Is that what we're really going to see?
I think we can do it because we've got a 14-inch post-tension concrete slab below the elevation of these trees. And so we can design that for the point loads. We know where the trees are going to be. We're just going to do what we did at North Ave, which is to plan for the trees at a specific location and build in the capacity to carry them.
Okay.
I think what's interesting here, Tom, is that this courtyard's really going to be seen.
Yep.
The courtyard across the street at Foundry isn't seen. The courtyard at 175 isn't seen.
Right.
Your point of what are we looking at from the fields and from North Ave, which is 90% of the viewing.
Yep.
Was a great comment and made us all think about, Jesus, what is happening over here on this backside?
And I'll just
I'm
add,
glad you brought it up because I wouldn't have thought of it really.
Yeah.
I think it's a great comment, and we'll certainly take a look at it and see if we can get a little more pop and get a little more interest in the courtyard, in the fence, and the elements that surround the courtyard.
Sounds good. Tom, did you have something else? It sounded like you were.
No, I was just gonna say it looks a hell of a lot better than crystal lumber.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Well, thank you.
Hey, Chris, one of the other things that maybe we could do, and it may be too much or not enough, is you may be able to, along the top rail, or, you could do seasonal planter boxes that are huge. That, yeah, I get that it's money, but you could add a lot of color up on that first level in the courtyard that would be seen from this area, in that area.
In here,
Yeah,
yeah, that's a good idea. We'll take a look at that, some seasonal planters along there. Okay.
Okay. My additional comment, in general comment, I was going to raise it earlier. Chris, I think in your presentation, there were some slides that we did not get ahead of time. Brian, what you sent us. So like the light spec showing that street lamp. A couple of the other, I think the other shadow one was from the equinox time zone. So if we can just get all of that material, I think we got most, but not everything you showed. So we just want it for the record.
Just email me the presentation you made tonight, Chris, and I'll send it to the chair.
Okay. I think the only thing that was missing was the light fixture, and that was a game day decision that I made with the Wakefield DPW this morning. So
Yeah,
I can certainly send it along, happy to.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. There may have been one or two other pages, but just so we get it all.
I'll send the whole thing, no problem.
All right. Okay. Brian, was there anything else on the agenda from your perspective?
Nope. I think.
Brian, have you been to TAC yet with this?
No, our traffic study's being finished up, Chip. We haven't completed the traffic study yet. You know, I will say, you know, you mentioned Crystal Lumber and the Taylor Building, it looking better than that. When we had our site visit at 69 Boundary Street with all the safety officials, I was amazed at the fire officer telling me, pointing to numerous buildings. Well, I'm exaggerating, not numerous, but pointing to some buildings on Foundry Street saying, that's been abandoned. We're not going in there. We're not going in there. We're waiting for that to happen. So, you know, it's really, you know, I think beneficial to start seeing this area get revitalized.
So Dave, on traffic, I know they're doing their study, but if you recall, we sent a letter to the select board about traffic in this area when we started to do these projects. Have we ever really heard anything back?
No.
I mean, is there any efforts that they're looking at the larger area as this area is being renewed?
I'm not aware of any. I can reach out. Brian, I don't know if you've heard anything from discussions you may have had. You know, Envision is coming up here. There might be parts of that in play. But no, I haven't heard of any sort of larger study.
Dave, I thought Envision was the answer.
Well, that's coming up Albion, but I don't know that it addresses Broadway and, you know.
It
this-
doesn't, but I
that's
think
not
the
the
answer we
answer.
got was, oh, Envision will look at that.
Yeah, but that's not the answer. We need an actual study done with everything over here.
Right, because a certain amount of development potential is a known entity, right? What's the zoning does? The zoning gives you the zoning envelope for what can be developed there. So it's just a math calculation to determine how many square feet and the type of use we might see. And so it's not a hard exercise. And I think for us as board members, as we take these projects on one at a time, we can't look at the cumulative traffic in a way. I mean, we see a traffic study, but I mean, what's going to happen? We're going to, you know, the last guy in is going to have to do all the improvements or won't be able to develop to, you know, it just doesn't seem strategitic to me to be doing it one.
I'll reach out. I'll reach out.
Yeah.
One thing maybe too to add on that, Dave, I know that it keeps going back to it's near the train, it's near the train. I'm part of the Vision 2030 group as a representative from our board. In our forum that we had the other day, they talked about commuters. And I forget the exact number, so don't quote me, but I want to say it was only like 8.3% of people are commuting. So if that's the case, then that kind of takes away their argument of people that are going to be living here are going to be using the train. So we need to have a more comprehensive view of what we're actually looking at.
Okay. All right, I'll reach out.
I can tell you from an infrastructure perspective, the DPW is dealing with this methodically. As you know, they required significant contributions from Harvard Mills for all of the water main work in Foundry Street from Albion Street through Maple Street. So that whole water main has been redone at the expense of the owner. And this doesn't have anything to do with traffic, but there is thought going into this. And the DPW memorandum on this is going to require upgrades to carry that water main forward further down. And the 69 Foundry Street, the project that my client, Mr. Melanson, permitted, they were involved with the expense of putting all the overhead utilities underground. So it is, you know, not to answer your question on traffic, but it is from an infrastructure standpoint, there is organization in rhythm on what's happening here.
But I would also assume that there's 3 traffic studies, 3 buildings recently, basically, that have gone down here, that here's a place where they comprehensively, at least within the 3 projects, can look at it, as opposed to a spot, you know, here is one project, there's another project. Here's 3 projects in the same place. Traffic studies done for 2 of them so far. A 3rd one coming. Seems to me they can take the dots and line them up and figure it out.
I think, Mr. Chair, it would be something you would pose to the Traffic Advisory Committee.
Yes, I would.
Yeah,
That
and
was my plan.
the town's traffic consultant. I mean, you know, the point that Tom brings up is well taken, but I think that the town has on retainer experts that are capable of, you know, answering some of the questions that Mr. Lucy raised.
Agreed. I know they can do it. It's just committing time and resources and whatever additional expense to do that wider study and come up with a set of recommendations that the town thinks they can implement in terms of handling the infrastructure in that area. So let's keep it on the rails for tonight in this project. I'll take it offline with the TAC and the town board and Steve Mayo, who got the previous letter that we sent. And we'll see what we can get in motion.
I don't think it's something that the town needs to implement, other than the fact to study the corridor and assume certain other buildings are coming in the future and just lay down the law as to what project's going to have to pay for on that street as part of the project. It's not an expense to the town. It's an expense as part of the project any projects going forward. And therefore, it's up to the town to decide what needs to be done along that corridor and not, you know, not do it one at a time. Basically, there's a master plan for that corridor.
I understand, Jim. I got it. I really do. But it may be an expense to the town if they say you got to make Broadway 2-way and put in a turning lane. Someone's got to pay for that. It may not be an applicant, maybe the town. I'm just throwing it as a hypothetical. So we don't know what the cost, who might bear the cost of any of this recommendations, but let's start with getting them to actually put something in play and do a study, because that's what we asked for, and I haven't heard of any large study being done other than Envision. Okay, sounds like we'll have some updates potentially on architectural next time. Traffic potentially, Brian.
Mr. Chairman, I am scheduled to take some time off in the next week, so I would like to propose that we talk about another aspect of the project in 2 weeks. Come back around to the architecture in the following meeting. Brian, can we talk about the site civil
Site
drainage?
civil. Yep, site civil, I think, Mr. Chair, because we won't be ready on traffic.
Okay, so traffic will be.
So do we skip a week?
Well, I think we can do some site civil stuff, Chip.
Agreed.
How much? I mean, how much conversation can there be about site civil?
Well, you might be able to put it to rest because I think it's pretty basic. You know,
Okay.
it might be 20 minutes and you're done with it because I don't think there's a lot.
Okay. All right, anything else you think you'd be ready to discuss next time? And those other items would potentially be April 14th, but we'll get there. Okay.
Yeah, let's focus on site civil, please.
Okay, and that's it for next time?
Yes.
Okay. All right, before we go there, I think I may have seen a hand raised earlier. I don't know if it's still there. We'll open up the public testimony. Any comment or question based on the information presented this evening, please raise your hands. And there was a hand earlier, but we were still deliberating.
See one.
Oh, yeah.
There it is. There it is. Okay. Kate Crump.
Hi, my name
Can
is
you-
Kate Crump. I live up on Richardson Street,
Can you give
42
your full
Richardson
address,
Street.
please? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
42 Richardson Street.
Okay, thank you.
So I walk this way a lot, and so this is the side of the building. I'll see the side that's displayed, the train track side. My one question, I love the idea about making this a little bit prettier, maybe not just a plain old fence. But the one thing I'm actually a little bit concerned about, not sure how this would be managed by the property, is that there's a lot of graffiti that happens along the train line into the city. So if it's just a plain old fence or even a pretty fence with something nice, how do we sort of prevent graffiti from overtaking a fence line like this and making it a blight again?
We condition it that
question.
it has to be maintained, just like we
Okay.
do landscaping. We do have a way to do it.
Great. Okay, I just want to make sure that was something people were thinking about. Thank you.
No, thanks for raising the
Wasn't, but I
point.
am now.
Yeah, if I could add to that, because that is a great point, and because there is a ton of graffiti there now, it's becoming blighted, and you know, we're gonna have security cameras and an operation and maintenance program that, as Mr. Tabell said, would be required to get rid of it. Best way to fight graffiti is get rid of it the next day. They eventually quit because they do it as art, and when it disappears right away, they won't come back to that spot anymore.
It does actually argue for the cutout idea in terms of the graphics on the fence, because there might be less opportunity for graffiti if there were some kind of pattern perforations in the fencing.
True. Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Crump. Anyone else? I don't see any more hands, so we'll close it to public testimony for the evening. All right, so it sounds like we have a plan for the next meeting to do site civil. So with that, someone
I
care to-
move that we continue this to the 24th.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, Chip,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Tom,
Yep.
Mike,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the updates tonight. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank
Chris,
you for your
enjoy
time.
summer off. We'll see you in a month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. On to our new hearing for the evening, case 21-43 and 44, SGD Management Group LLC at 97 to 99 Water Street.
Who's still sharing, Dave?
Chris, could you stop
Oh.
sharing?
Oh, that's not me.
Great.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail representing the applicant, SGD Management Group LLC, property at 9799 Water Street in Wakefield. With me tonight is the principal of SGD Management Group, Saverio Fulciniti, who is on the Zoom. You might remember Saverio. He did a project at 10 Wakefield Ave, not far from here, that was permitted by the board and done very well and completed as it should have been. Also with us tonight is Carlton Quinn, who is our site civil engineer from Allen and Major. And Rob Passione is on, and he is our architect. I think I've got everybody. Saverio, did I get everybody?
I think that's everybody.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. This petition involves property situated at 9799 Water Street. It's situated entirely in the business district. I think maybe the best way to go about this is kind of give the board a little little tour of the area. This is, I've always remembered this property. My dad, when I was growing up, he worked at this substation for the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department. It's now named after him, the Richard McGrail Memorial Substation. So I kind of grew up in this neighborhood as a kid, spent a lot of time visiting my father when he was working here. And I remember the folks that lived in this property right here, which is 9799 Water Street. Kind of an odd building when you really look at it. You know, it's a two-family house in the business district. It really is kind of the gateway into the business area. As you come down, you've got the bowling alley across the street. You've got Shaw's, and then you come down Water Street, and you've got you know, now you start kind of seeing the businesses, if you will. Barber shop, restaurants, but this kind of sits on an island. And I've always kind of looked at it as kind of like an awkward building, just the way it kind of fits in. That's just kind of been my personal opinion of it. So my client purchased this property not too long ago with a desire to redevelop it. It also has other kind of site civil issues with it, which are somewhat unique. There is a drainage line that comes down kind of from the middle school that, believe it or not, actually goes underneath this building, a portion of this building. And it cuts across and it goes through the Shaw's property. Some of the board members that were around for Shaw's might remember that once we got over here, that underground drainage, huge drainage pipe was moved to the perimeter because it used to go underneath the mill buildings. And now it's on the other side of Shaw's and cuts across Nassau Playground. The other issue with this property, you can kind of zoom in. This is the illustrious sidewalk that is there. It's kind of, you know, it's kind of unique because you do have a sidewalk that comes down, and then you have this kind of non-delineated, I'll call it a footpath. And then, as you can see, people park on it, but it's connected to a sidewalk. It's kind of hard to tell, but Carlton will get into this, and I think I'm correct in saying this, that this is actually on our property, this walkway, or this path. So this is not, the way these sidewalks are delineated, they actually encroach on private property, not the town property. So one of the things that we really delved into here when we started this was, I said, before we go to the zoning board, the first thing we really want to do is meet with the town engineering department to talk about these infrastructure issues and how we would deal with them, to address them, make them better for the town, make them better for the property. So what we proposed is to take the drainage that actually goes underneath the building and cuts across, and to put it off of the property. So that drainage pipe, which is a significant project, will be moved out to Wakefield Ave, and then we'll cut into Water Street. It would no longer go under the building. And then the other thing that Carlton will talk about is that we're proposing to relocate the sidewalk and put in a proper sidewalk to make it work properly. So that's kind of like a little background. And what they want to do is they want to raise this building and put a new building. And I think probably the best way to start this is probably, and I'm going to show these, you haven't seen them, but they're kind of renderings because they probably tell a better picture, give you an idea of what's being proposed. So this is, you know, I talked to Savario, we talked about this, and I did say, I said, you know, I'm pretty sure that anything that's done here, the board is going to want to see a retail component because you're coming into the business district. And that's what they're proposing here. This first floor with all the glass windows will be retail. And there's parking underneath in the garage. So all the required parking is in the building. No request to waive the number of parking spaces. And then it's basically a 5-unit building. And one of the units would be an affordable unit. You know, using an old Brian Falvey term, it kind of fills the tooth, missing tooth. Kind of the way that property now, you know, and I also said I thought it would be important to kind of match the height of these buildings. Originally, they were considering trying to go a little bit higher. maybe get some more units. After we talked about it, I said, I don't think that that's going to be too successful. I think there's going to be a desire to keep the height of the building consistent on Water Street. And this kind of gives you another view of it on Water Street with the glass storefront. Coming the other direction. This is a porch or a deck. And then this is the Wakefield Ave perspective. So I hope that kind of gives you a little background. You know, what we're seeking is 2 special permits. We meet the parking requirements. It's under the building. So just for the use, and then some dimensional relief, which is fairly standard for your consideration. I think that kind of tees it up. And if I can, I'm going to, at this point, I think I'll start with Carlton, if that's okay with you, Carlton, if you could kind of walk through and highlight some of these issues that I've talked about, maybe with the drainage and the sidewalk. Is that okay with you? Can you turn your camera on, Carlton? Where are you? Oh, there you are. Can you test your microphone? We can't hear you, Carlton. We can't hear you. How come those earpieces never work?
Can you hear me now?
We can. Do you want me to bring up the site civil plans, or do you want to do it?
If you don't mind bringing them up, that'd be helpful. We'll just go through them in order.
Okay, give me a minute.
Really.
Let me find it. Hold on. Exit out of this. Okay. It's good.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Good evening, board members. My name is Carlton Quinn. I'm a civil engineer with Allen Major Associates. Here, I think Brian went over some of the issues. If you can look at kind of the top left corner of the building there, you can see how as Wakefield Ave comes out, it kind of funnels outward and it kind of bends in towards our property. So basically at the pinch point there, most of the sidewalk is on our property. And as Brian mentioned, we sat with Bill Renault at the beginning of this to kind of work out the best path forward. And everything we showed you, we did go through with him originally, and he did conceptually agree with the way we were kind of moving forward with this. So in front of you, there's the 4,300 square foot lot, 1,800 square foot building in the top left, kind of with the bull nose on the top left. If you want to scroll on to the next plan. This plan shows, if you kind of look up Wakefield Ave, we just kind of squared it off to make it straight and pull the sidewalk right onto the back of the property line. So now all the right-of-way sidewalks will be in the right-of-way. They'll all be brand new concrete with granite curbing and a new pedestrian crosswalk section there. And you might see that we went a little further down Water Street past our property. That's because we're replacing the drain line, as Brian had mentioned, and it's a pretty significant move, but that extended sidewalk is to cover up the repair work we'll need to do for that drain line. Off of Water Street, as you saw earlier, there'll be a retail pedestrian access at the front corner, and then the pedestrian access for the residential will be in the bottom left, and the driveway entrance will be just north of that entrance there, with a 22-foot wide curb cut entering the covered parking, and all the, obviously the refuse area and all that will be within the parking area within the building, no dumpsters outside. If you want to go on to the next slide, Brian, this is our utility and drainage line. And it's difficult to see where the existing drain line comes through, but you can see in the bottom left corner of the plan, there's a light line coming across the street and kind of comes up at a 45-degree angle right through our site, all the way to the manhole on the top right of Water Street there, that little circle, exactly. Currently, that's an 18-inch vitrified clay pipe, extremely old, most likely probably has some cracks in it. So we're going to intercept the main in the right-of-way with a new manhole. We're going to run a brand new 24-inch pipe up and around the boundaries of our property and connect it back into the other end of the pipe further down Water Street. We are connecting our water line to the main Water Street, and then all the other utilities will be connected off of Wakefield Avenue. We are proposing a stormwater management system. It'll be located in the drive aisle of the parking garage. This should be a fairly clean set of water since there'll be no parking lot. There'll be no sediment or anything. All the water will be clean rooftop water. There'll be a little bit infiltrated. There'll be a cleaning device, and then it will be sent through the drain system as shown here. There's really not much additional site work here. As you can see, the property is mostly building, but we are obviously, replacing and removing the existing line that's coming through the property. There is no easement for it now. It's just kind of running through there and putting it back onto the municipal property so it can be, serviced and fixed as required by the DPW. And we are obviously updating and replacing the whole sidewalk and fixing the encroachment issues with that. And also the existing building has a small encroachment into the right-of-way, which we'll also be pulling back onto our property. That's all I have, Brian, if you think there's anything we need to add.
Nope, that's fine. I just want to add, and thank you, Carlton, for doing that. Huge infrastructure contribution to this project. This is, a fully handicapped compliant sidewalk now. Talk about pedestrian safety compared to what's there now. And all at the expense of the owner of the property, no expense to the town. As Carlton mentioned, this is a clay pipe that goes under a portion of the building that if that thing ever gives, and it is old, there's going to be problems, and the town doesn't even have an easement on the property to really do it or to get at it. And again, at my client's full cost and expense, he's relocating that and doing all of that infrastructure work. Bill Renault, I think, was pretty enthusiastic to see that, that work was going to be done on the property owner's dime and not the town's dime, and going to upgrade everything, all the infrastructure. So with that said, to move it along, Rob, are you there?
Yep.
Okay. Do you want me to bring up your plans, or do you want them?
Why don't I just do it real quick?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you for doing that.
Faster. I'll just.
There you go.
Let's see if we can do this real quick. Is everyone able to see?
Yep.
So I'll just run through the plans real quick and describe the elevations. So this is the first floor, which is at the ground level. So here we have Wakefield Ave along this side and then Water Street on this side. This is a small retail space we have at the front of the building with, as Carlton mentioned, a retail entry on the corner. We have our parking, so we have 8 parking spaces. In the center and rear of the building, we have a stair at the Water Street side in this upper corner, and then also another stair and the elevator along the Wakefield side at the lower right-hand corner over here, along with the elevator and stair and lobby. Going up to the second floor, so on this floor we have 3 apartment units. We have a 1-bedroom here, 1-bedroom here at the front with a large living room area, and then a 2-bedroom on this side. We have a rear deck area for this unit located in the back. And then at the third floor, we just have 2 units on this floor, so which gives us a total of 5. And these are a 2-bedroom on this side, and then a 2-bedroom on this side, and then a small front porch looking over Water Street at the corner below the retail. Then just a typical roof plan. We do have stair access to get up to the roof to service the elevator machine room. So looking at the elevations, so this is the east elevations. This is the side with the garage entry. We have, a large amount of glazing for the retail to give that some visibility from the sidewalk. We have a small bumped out area just to add a little texture to the elevations, which is located above the garage door. We do have a small little nook here for some gas meters. This is the entry for the rear elevator lobby and stair lobby. Looking at the south elevation, this is the rear elevation. So just showing some of the rear porches, pretty simple. This is the stairwell. So this is where you see it comes up above the main roof line for that stair access to the roof. And we are showing some equipment screening around some of the rooftop equipment we'll have, just basics of some heat pumps, nothing too major planned. This side is this is looking at the part of the front elevation along on Water Street, and then this is again the side of the building that will be set back from the street. And then here is the Water Street side. So this will have again a bunch of glazing for the retail space, and then we have our deck area and the stair access. Just to talk about the siding real quick, we're looking to do some clapboard siding along the lower portion with maybe a darker color planning, and then above that having some vertical boarded batten type siding above in a lighter color, which you can see on the renderings that that Brian had showed, which I'll show again real quick. We just did a few studies here just showing the adjacent buildings and how our building relates to that. So, real quick, just looking at this north elevation, the adjacent building is 32 feet. We're at about 31.6. So essentially we're trying to keep a similar massing as the other buildings surrounding this property. This is that rear building along Wakefield. So again, that's the peak of that roof is about 33'8". We are going above that with the stair tower, but the main body of the building is below that elevation wise.
Is that the newly constructed height, Rob? Is that building's being rehabilitated?
No, that I wasn't aware of that, to be honest. So no,
Right,
that's the existing.
That's for
existing
Wakefield,
building.
right, Brian?
Yeah, that building, the height on that building didn't change, Dave.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it did,
Yeah.
but just
Okay.
making sure.
Yeah, what was there a few weeks ago? And again, just running through those renderings that you guys already saw. But this is, what we're looking to do. This is that bumped out area above the garage door that I had mentioned, just to give you guys an idea of what that looks like, massing wise. So Brian, I think that's a overview of what we're doing architecturally.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if you can bring up the other plan again. Like to just level set on the table and the relief that would potentially be involved here.
Yep.
I think it was on the Allen and Major slide. I forgot what.
Oh, my bad. I got the wrong plan up. Hold on.
Yeah, I think you had it open. I don't know if you closed it, but.
Yeah. I did have it open. Hold on.
Yeah, second sheet, I think.
I did close. Just bear with me for a second. I'll bring it back up.
Lesson, never ever close anything.
I know.
Till the meeting's done.
Good.
Because someone's going to ask for it.
Here we go. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that table. So if you can just run down that and just see. So we get the full picture of what's involved here.
So this is in the business district. It is within the 2,500 radius of the railroad station. So the requirement is 4,000 square feet, and it meets the requirement. There's no lot area requirement in the business district. Lot frontage, 40 feet, and the existing on this, believe it or not, is 144.4. required is 180. We need some relief on that.
And that's because of the two streets. It's on a
Yes,
corner.
correct, yeah. Lot width, the required is 40 in the business district, which we meet easily, but with the multifamily, it's 180. So asking for relief on that. Open area, we need relief on that because we're covering a good part of the lot, as you know, with the parking underneath. So 10% in the business and existing 38, required 30 in the multifamily, we're at 4.9. Building height, 60 is allowed in the business district. The existing is 13 feet. And multifamily is 50, we're at 40. So we meet the requirements on the height. Front yard setbacks, there's none in the business district. It's actually over the lot line. As Carlton had mentioned, the multifamily is 30. We're going to be at 1 foot, basically on the street, just like the other buildings are on Water Street. So 1 foot all the way around. Floor area ratio 1.5. In the business district, there is no floor area ratio requirement for multifamilies, but in comparing it to the business district, we're at 2.7. And building coverage, business 80% allowed, existing 41.8, 35% allowed on the multifamily. We've got, as I mentioned, most of the lot covered because our parking underneath. And we do meet the parking requirements because a total of 7.5 will be required for what we're doing, and we've rounded it up to 8.
Okay, thank you for that.
Does that help?
Yep.
Yeah, can we leave that there for a minute, Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
The two that jump out at me the most, Brian, are the floor area ratio being at 1.5. You're almost twice that at 2.7. And the building coverage ratio is 80%. You're at 93.4. Your setbacks are 1 foot. I don't see how this is. I get that you've got a strange little 2-family building there, but I don't see how this is helping the neighborhood a whole lot. I mean, we are maxing out this site to the nth degree, to the inch. And it just, to me, feels, I mean, architecturally, I don't, everybody has different taste. I don't particularly, it looks like a warehouse building to me with some windows put into it. Doesn't, the idea that it's mixed use with the amount of retail there is so minimal. It just seems way too much for this lot, way too much, in my opinion. That's an opinion. I'd like to hear where other people are at.
I totally agree with you. The only thing that I kind of like is I think I might like the materials that they picked, but the look of the building, I don't like it at all. To add the retail space there, I think is a stretch. I think it's just trying to go in with the mixed use buildings. I think it's a wasted space, and it's basically now 6 units instead of 5, if you count that. It doesn't fit at all. I don't know where that would fit, but it definitely doesn't fit right there, and it's too much for that spot.
Thank you, Amy. Any other board members?
I agree it's too much, but with retail, I hear what you're saying. It's so small. I think it's really awkward to have residential use right there because of, I think the retail's a good buffer there right on that busy edge. I think it'd be awkward to have a residential unit right on that corner, but at ground level. But I agree with I'm not a fan of the architecture. I didn't like the material. I think if they're a little bit more creative with some setbacks, at least on the upper floor, it might fit better. But if you look at that wall, when you're past the retail section if you leave that view up, look at the wall right by the car. It's just a blank wall, 3 stores up. There's no articulation that I can see. There's a change of color, and it goes from horizontal to vertical. I don't know. That kind of doesn't do it for me.
No, I can see that too. I mean, I should take back how I worded that. Maybe if it was retail and 1 or 2 other units above it, then
Yeah.
that would be one thing. But like I said, when you're adding 5 units plus the retail, and now you have 6 units, you know, call it whatever you want to call it, it's still 6 units. But yeah, I mean, if it was something much smaller and with setbacks and some green space and whatever, then the retail wouldn't bother me.
There's a history to the growth of retail, basically, in this neighborhood and on Main Street. And there's still some of that history left in the far sides of the building, all right? And if you look on Main Street, there's still the original older houses that extended themselves out to the sidewalk to provide retail, where in fact the owner of the retail space lived above. This is very much that same sort of thing, where a lot of these buildings, if you go down, you'll find out that probably the retail on the first floor didn't exist at one time. They were apartment houses for people that worked at the factory across the street. But over time, basically, that little old Italian or something like that that bought the building decided that retail was good. I'm going to build some retail in here. I'm going to pick up the people as they break shifts from the factory and like. So there's a history, and it's all the way down that street, basically, as to how things got added on. So I don't mind the fact there's retail here on this edge because I think it's appropriate. You can talk about the architecture, whether you think it's a little too extreme, it doesn't match with everything else here, and I wouldn't disagree or agree. There is certainly remnants of this showing up on the street already. The thing that I think bothers me more than anything else is the elevator system and stairway system, which hasn't been thought through really. And there's ways of dealing with hatches and other things to get to that roof, and putting the mechanical room on the roof is just going to send vibrations right through the building or in the unit below. So, and I'm not sure what the design is for the elevator, but that's way too soon right now. But I can tell you right now, it's extremely oversized.
Yeah, again, consistent with that, I think it's appropriate to have the mixed use here because it's clear it's up and down that block. Whether this style architecture is right, I don't, the building adjacent to it isn't particularly the most, attractive thing, but it's the similar height, 2 stories above a retail component. So I think the potential use is appropriate. The way it's designed currently, I don't know, and not for nothing, the people at 4 Wakefield just rehab that building and put some balconies. So you're going to be balcony facing balcony on the back. Maybe not the best thing. I know you'd want to give people living there maybe some outdoor space, and that's nice, but reality is they're going to be staring at each other. And they just lost whatever sunlight they may have just had potentially, because they rehabbed that building and now this is going right up in front of them. They may not be big fans of that either. So it's just something to think about. I know this is their property and they have a right to do certain things to it, but asking for this relief now puts it on us to have to contemplate these things and other factors in its relation to the neighborhood. Substantially detrimental, does it fit, does it work, all the criteria for a special permit. So we should be mindful of all of that, given what's going on in the area. Any other comments, board members? We did receive some correspondence, so I'd like to entertain that at the appropriate time, but I just want to make sure everyone's had a chance to offer their initial comments.
Yeah, I have a quick question for Rob. The parking area seems a little tight to me. Is that a 2-way garage door, or is it 1 way in, 1 way out kind of thing? Or
Yeah, I believe, Carlton, maybe you have that dimension on your plan, but I believe it's at least 22 feet, maybe 24.
22.
What was it? 22. Yeah, so it's intended to be 2-way.
Yeah.
All right. And are there columns inside there that they have to like squeeze their way around? Boxes.
Yeah, I believe we'll need some columns. So we are showing some between the spaces. I could bring out my plan if that's
I mean, it seems rather tight. That's all. I mean, people.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that obviously need to be careful around. I mean, there are parking garages with columns. It's not ideal. I mean, if we haven't vetted that with a structural engineer yet, but you know, if there's a way that we can get rid of them, we certainly.
Okay, and we don't have to worry about parking for the retail? It's.
No,
No.
no.
All right.
And, you know, and, you know, we talked about, I mean, you know, honestly, when these projects come in, you know, when I'm involved in these, none of my clients really want to do the retail. The retail is a lost leader for them. It's really, you know, and I've told them all, and Savari will tell you, I'm saying, you know, the board's looking for retail. You know, they want the mix. That's my thought. I think there is use for this. I mean, you know, this retail space wouldn't be too dissimilar than what Ray Lawton did at his building on Main Street. And I got to tell you, a great barber moved in there. It's Mo's Barber Shop, which is now my barber. And if you have a chance to visit it, it's phenomenal. It's a brand new barber shop and it's gorgeous. And I went there on Friday and got my hair cut. And it was just great being in there. It's brand new. It's clean. People are walking by. You can see in the windows. So, you know, these small spaces are, you know, there's a need for these small spaces for local businesses. And what's kind of intriguing about them is they're brand new. They're not old. They're, you know, great HVAC, clean, new glass. So there is a use, a place for these small retails. A lot of times people, oh, it's small. There's, you know, what's the use of that? Well, there is a use for it. You know, small businesses need small spaces and they like new spaces. So it is a viable use within the building.
Well, Brian, is there an elevator in this building? Or is it, there is an elevator?
Rob can address that. Rob?
Yeah, there is an elevator. It's in the
Do you need one
rear.
on the 3 floors? I thought it was more than 3 floors you need.
No, I believe we need one for handicap accessibility.
Okay.
It's towards the rear of the building, up Wakefield.
Well, I know, I was trying to avoid that whole, I'm in total agreement with that back there. It's just too tall in the back, so trying to avoid that, but okay.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, well, while you contemplate, so we did receive correspondence from the Concom. It's not within their jurisdiction. Fire department has some standard recommendations and requirements, which again, Brian, you and the team would have to adhere to, but standard things. Actually, what did they say about the fire hydrant? Is required. Is there a fire hydrant within 100 feet or on the same side of the street? I don't remember. Drive by there all the time, but
yeah, we'll look.
Okay, it's just one thing. It's just we have to install something. Yeah, okay.
Is that stop sign gonna get put back in place?
I'm sorry, Amy?
Is that stop sign gonna get put back in place? I just don't see it on the rendering.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
DPW, Bill Renault, there's a bunch of comments, right? So you'd go through those. We'd be looking for your feedback on those. Again, if plans need to be adjusted, traffic study to be reviewed. I don't know if you've.
Well, I mean, you know, if I can just interject on that, you know, whichever direction this project goes, I would question whether a traffic study is needed for this number of units. I mean, there's already 2 units there.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Just going from 2 to 5, it's already a busy corridor, but I don't know
So,
what that tells us.
But Dave, with that, would almost a non-traditional traffic study be needed? The fact that you're narrowing the, you know, kind of like what the planning board said, you're now narrowing the street because you're taking back what is your land. And planning board said, you know, that this is an already tough area. So is it not, you know, not necessarily for increasing traffic, but almost a safety study?
Yeah. Well, I would suggest you respectfully suggest that you talk to the town engineer about it, because we did what he wanted.
Understood, but is the town engineer a traffic safety expert?
Or it could be taken to TAC.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
You know, I think they could take a quick look at it.
Yep.
And you know, I understand what you're saying, Greg. Maybe they could deal with it through Matt Billy. I think you know, with all the infrastructure improvements that my client's doing here, that the town engineer, I think, is very excited about because, you know, Bill said to us when we met, so you're gonna tell us that you want us to get your sidewalk off of your property? And, you know, we said, no, we want to work with you, and, you know, and that's what we're doing. So, but I understand the point. I just think the TAC could answer it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Understood.
Nope, and I was gonna get to that because that was the other letter we just got. And I don't know if Bill Spalding's still on here, but according to the existing conditions, it appears the existing curb line, a portion of the sidewalk is located on their lot, which you've testified it is. Proposed plans located 1 foot off the right of way, and the easterly curb line is to be relocated, thus narrowing the travel lanes of Wakefield Ave. This narrowing proposed placement of the bill will make it an existing difficult intersection even worse. We feel that any development of the site should improve public safety for pedestrians and vehicular movement. So they'd like us to consider that. So you're right, maybe not a full study, but at least a review by our TAC and our engineering firm, just to see what they think about, again, sight lines and narrowing of corridor and that kind of thing. Not so much from what 5 units would do for traffic, but from other safety aspects. So I think it's worth doing, Brian. Now, is that something that you would be inclined to reach out, or should we reach out because it's the town's consultant?
Yeah, I think they're gonna want to hear from you.
Okay. I figured I'd just ask.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So I will take a note to do that, board members.
What's that little like doggy door on the side?
That's for some gas meters.
Oh, okay.
So there is no gas though, right?
Yeah, there's no gas.
Well, yeah, we're able to keep park gas for the commercial because the light department said it's already existing.
Oh,
Okay, nice.
but not for the units upstairs.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Just to be clear, my comments already moving forward to traffic don't mean that I like the architecture. I'm with everybody else on that.
Okay. I think they've heard that. Any other points for now? All right, if not, we will open up to public testimony. If anyone has a comment or question, please raise your hand. I will call on you in order as best I can here. The first one I see raised is Ed Kirby. So, sir, if you can just announce your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, hi, if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is Ed Kirby. It's represent Kerwick LLC. I spent the past 2 years developing 4 Wakefield Ave directly behind this property. As you're all well aware that I've met all setbacks, the green space, done everything according to the zoning bylaws and whatnot for the town. Spent a significant amount of money developing this property. And my roof line stands at 32 feet. This property would be much larger than that by about 8 feet. And my decks currently are in place, finished, and occupancy permits have been obtained and ready to move in. And the decks right now are about 7 feet. Well, they measure 7 feet off the back of my house. So you can imagine that I'll definitely be able to reach out and touch somebody literally at the property next door that's being proposed here. I mean, you can literally, you know, within a foot or 2 feet, whatever that measurement's going to be. So that's obviously a huge concern of mine, as well as the open air space, sunlight and whatnot, just the hindrance of the property overall. So, I mean, that being said, obviously it's an ongoing concern as far as I'm concerned. The amount of money I've just put into that property. Really, that's all I have to say at this point.
All right. All right, thank you. Sorry, I don't see a full name. D. Magnarelli, sorry.
Yeah, that's Dominic Magnarelli.
Oh, thank you. If you can just state your full name and address for the record.
Sure, Dominic Magnarelli, 18 Briarwood Lane. I live here in Wakefield. I'm a beneficial owner of the building right next door, 103, 105 Water Street. It's held in the name of FJ Chicharella Trust. Number of comments. First of all, it appears as though the developer here is looking for at least 5 areas of relief: lot width, open space, building coverage, footprint area. I think that's footprint area. I'm not sure what that, and frontage, and maybe a couple of others that I happen to miss. The fact that we're looking at a lot that's just over 4,000 square feet, and they're using 90-something% of the lot area, I think is ridiculous, especially when it does not fit in with the surrounding area, okay? Ed Kirby, who's he's behind us and behind this building as well, as he said, he's got a tremendous amount of open space. He's got parking for, I don't know, maybe 10 cars up there. He took an existing unit, basically renovated it, and did not infringe on the footprint that existed, okay? Our building, and I think Ed's got maybe 6 units in that building. Our building has 4 one-room apartments and 2 stores below. We also have 1-room or 1-bedroom apartments. We also have some parking out back. Our lot is, and again, I don't have my plan with me, and I'm not in state right now, but our lot is 7,000 and something. So neither of the 2 abutting properties occupy coverage area anywhere near the proposal for this particular building. It does not fit in the area, absolutely, as far as coverage is concerned. It also doesn't fit in the area in terms of aesthetics. Now, the buildings that surround this particular lot have probably been there. I know our building's been there about 100 years, okay? The building next door to us, which was a Tootie's restaurant that anybody from Wakefield would know about, has been there probably as long. The Water Street buildings, as you move down towards Saugus, they've probably been there a great amount of time as well. As far as the building on Wakefield Ave is concerned, I'm not certain how long that's been there, but once again, it's in the style of that entire neighborhood. And again, once you get beyond these buildings, you're into a residential area. They're generally multifamilies that are up in that area. And they, you know, other than something that maybe has been purchased, I think further up Wakefield Ave, somebody bought a piece of property, and I don't know if they tore it down and put up a new building or did a renovation. But other than that, all you right around this building, just take a right around that block. You will not see anything looking like this. It does not fit the area, okay? This gentleman that bought the property, or the corporation that bought the property, they knew what the zoning bylaws were in Wakefield. I don't think the zoning bylaws have changed in the year and 4 months, because he bought it in October of 2019. The zoning bylaws haven't changed, okay? Why would anybody buy a piece of property knowing what the zoning bylaws are, to basically know that they're going to come forward looking for 5 or 6 areas of relief? Shouldn't be the case.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate
You're
your
welcome.
input. Anyone else? Give out one last scan of the participant list. And not seeing any other hands, we'll close it to public testimony for the evening. All right, so Brian and team, I think you're hearing some significant feedback here. It sounds like the team may have some work to do to maybe get over this initial hurdle, which could be a substantial one. I mean, we're going to continue it because it's going to take more time to get through different aspects of this, but do you want to say 2 weeks, or do you think the team might need more time to maybe try to address some of these concerns and come up with something different than what we're seeing now?
Yeah.
You're on mute.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about
Okay.
that.
No worries.
I was just scolding my dog who was eating my rug. So sorry about that. I can defer. I think I'm going to defer it to Savario. My thought would be that we would push this 4 weeks to give us some time to kind of regroup. But I wanted to get Savario's input before I committed to that.
Sure. Yeah, Brian. First and foremost, thank you to all the members of the board and our abutters who've given such great feedback. I think 4 weeks would probably give us enough time. What I would love to do, though, before we cut out, is to kind of zero in on some of the feedback so that we're sure that we can address as much of it as possible. To my abutters, rest assured, my thought process here is that this is a dialogue, and obviously we're taking into consideration everything that we've heard tonight. I do have a significant amount of money that has been invested on Wakefield Ave, because I am the guy that you so rightly pointed out, tore down that house a couple doors down and rebuilt it. So I completely feel where you're coming from. This neighborhood definitely could use a tender approach, and we definitely understand that. That's why we took such great care and caution when we built the 10 Wakefield Ave property, which we invested a tremendous amount of money in, and really push values for that neighborhood. So I am proud to say that we were part of that project, and hopefully we'll have a similar successful outcome here in creating something that hopefully everyone in the neighborhood and the board can be, of course, ecstatic about. That's ultimately our goal. I don't want anyone driving by going, oh man, that thing that we approved, So I think 4 weeks would give us enough time, but I would really like to zero in on a couple of things. It sounds like we're getting kind of mixed feedback on the retail space, whether or not we should keep it, shouldn't keep it. I'd love to hear a little bit more maybe about whether or not we feel like that's an avenue we should pursue. Also, I'd love to get a little bit more feedback on the material and the architecture, if there's a direction that perhaps some of the board members or our abutters feel would be more appropriate, perhaps suggested material or style or other projects in the area that maybe we could point to that maybe have successfully implemented some suggestions. In terms of the outdoor space and lot coverage and that kind of stuff, we're going to have to go back to the drawing board a bit. But at least in terms of the retail component and the material and architecture, I would love just a little bit more feedback so I can kind of zero in and obviously make this an efficient process for all stakeholders involved.
Dave, I'm going to jump in on that real quick because I was the one that said something about the retail. I'm not opposed to retail. I think my main concern was that it's just adding another unit to an already big property. So I'm on board with retail if it can be done in a respectful manner to fit into the neighborhood.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
And I would add again, I just don't see residential at that first level. This neighborhood has retail at that first level, so I'm okay with the mix as well. Again, as long as we work the residential part around it in perhaps a better way, because I think it's appropriate at that street level, sidewalk. It's what's going on in that area, so I think it's appropriate to try to keep it for now and work around it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Residential, residential, and for my input, just something more residential fitting in the neighborhood with clapboards, with colors, maybe brick, which is obviously in that neighborhood and has been for a long time. So maybe just something that speaks to a little more residential feel.
Yeah, I mean, I would, to your point, Dave, I'd look at both houses on either corner, both 4 and Water Street, and just kind of take some world off of that. You've got a nice couple. I keep with Greg, keep pointing at things, thinking somebody can see me, but whether it's a setback to with the residential pump, with the retail pushed forward, the blank wall with 2 doors after the windows doesn't do anything for the building along that streetscape. That I'd have that extend all the way down. You have no real entrance into these residential units other than a door next to a garage door. Overall, the thing's just way too big. So in my opinion, get it to fit into the neighborhood a lot better.
And maybe
Okay,
even
thank
just
you.
small roofs over those entries, so they kind of, it breaks up a mass and it shows you that it's an entry and there's a little bit of downlighting under it. And maybe that, it's just one small thing, but maybe something like that too. So, okay.
It's a matter of, walking the streets basically and seeing there's plenty of cues and architecture on the, within the street structure around there. So I don't think we have to basically sort of direct the design. It's basically go back to the boards and bring in some of the rest of the neighborhood basically to this thing, really.
Including open space and stuff. This isn't just an architecture of what materials.
Right, we gotta shrink the whole thing so that there's some breathing room on this thing.
You got it. Loosen the belt.
Yep. Okay. And it sounds like 4 weeks is at least an opportunity to give you some time to explore those. 2 weeks will probably be
What's
tight.
the
You're
date
probably
in 4 weeks?
April 14th. Right, Gail? I got that right? Yeah, April 14th. All right. So unless there's anything else, sounds like they've got the feedback and we'll see where we are then.
I move that we continue this to April 14th.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, Chip?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Jim?
You muted, Jim.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Joe? Thank you. Joe?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
And Mike?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. And we'll see you in a few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Good night. All right. I think those were all the applications for the night. There's an other matter. 20-4, 5, and 6 at 259 and 267 Water Street, Anthony Akari, and 259 Water Street LLC to discuss minor modifications.
Correct. So we have some minor modifications to discuss on that project. Peter Sandors is here. Jim McBain is very familiar with it. He's been working with Peter on this. I was discouraging them to come back for modifications, and Peter through Jim convinced me that we should do that. So here we are. I think as Jim had said, sometimes these projects, need modifications to make them better. So I'd like Peter to present them. You can determine if they're minor or not in your minds, because that's what matters. And if they are, if there's something that you'd be willing to entertain. So, Peter? You're muted.
Peter.
You're muted.
Hello, can I
Hello.
share the screen now? I think I can.
You should be able to.
Let's see down here, share screen. Here we go. New.
We're seeing something, but it's half your screen. A full screen on that window. Yeah.
We're seeing it now?
Yes.
So Jim had a chance, the drawings went in for submittal to the building department. And Jim had a chance to review them against what was approved by the zoning board. I believe it was just about a year ago in February. And as we developed the building, I believe minor changes happened. There's approximately 10 of them that have been flagged, and I'd just like to review those with you. And hopefully, Steve, do I have the right set of plans or do I have the wrong set of plans? I think I have the wrong set of plans. I think this is what was approved.
What you sent had clouds, right?
Yes, I want to.
I don't see any of these on that.
Pete, you have it open. It's just the other PDF.
It's
so if you just click on the other tab.
Yeah, it's this one here. Steve, correct?
Yep.
Yep. But that's weird. I'll work my way through here.
Stop that. You're gonna get my dogs going.
I know that's happened before. One of the first things that we noticed was that on our cover sheet, we had made revisions in our border. And I believe, see, I can't quite see it because you guys are in my way, but in our border, we list revisions on the far right. And I believe that that was taken to be revisions that were changed from the ZBA approval. That isn't what that was. It was us sharing with our structural engineer that we had made some changes to the stairway inside the building, right and left, just the way that they were laid into the plan. And we were dating that so there wasn't confusion in the review. We've made that change now in the border saying that we're calling out a stairway change, and it's not referencing the ZBA approved plan. Also, Jim had noted that in our plans, we say proposed first floor, proposed second floor. We've taken all that noting out of our plans. That's what this Rev Cloud is saying. It actually says first floor plan. It doesn't say proposed first floor plan. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the same thing. In our border, it was saying proposed. We've removed that from all the board, all the elevations. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we had submitted in our packet, it was just saying in our title block, proposed floor plans, proposed elevations, proposed sections. Now, along with the title block and also the drawing title inside the border, it's specifying the specific floor plan and elevation. So that was some feedback we had for some general comments from the board.
We also rebuilt the packet so that when we submit, we'll include with our submittal the landscape plan and the site plan as it was approved by the zoning board a year ago. This was just purely architectural, MEP, and structural when it was submitted this time. This is sheet 2. No, I'm sorry, I jumped on you guys. This is sheet 2. And this is a modification in this stairwell where I added an egress door on the Del Carmine Street elevation. And I put a set of stairs that meets grade. We're working with the contractors. We all believe we can lose that stairway and the door will just exit out onto grade with a paved walkway. But at this point, we are still showing an exit stair and an exit door and stair to grade. And this is a fire code issue where the fire code says if I come down this stairway and when I exit the door, if I can see the other door, I can get out of the building and I don't have to have this exterior door. Because of another piece of the code that says this door and this door have to be a certain number of feet apart, I could not make that happen. I had to move the door and therefore when you come out, you face a wall and do not see the other means of egress. That's why this door came back into play. So that was something that just developed as the plans.
Didn't we address this once already?
We did.
That door?
We did. We took it out. We removed it.
Oh, we removed it? We didn't just put it on grade?
No, we removed it. We talked about trying to get it on grade the same way.
Yeah.
But we weren't able to get to that point. So it was gone. It's back again.
On grade or with stairs?
With stairs, with the hope that I would like to see it get on grade still by doing a small retaining.
So you might have to come back and talk about this door for a third time?
I may. This door won't leave me alone.
Now I understand why Brian said don't come back.
That's right. Up on the 4th floor, we did changes to the interior of the units. We flipped the way that they functioned. And with that, the rear of the building, the doors inset 2 feet. On the front of the building, the doors used to inset 4 feet. We matched the rear of the building, they're insetting 2 feet. It adds more living area inside the unit, but that made a change to the front elevation as those balconies aren't as deep as they were originally proposed. Let's see, sheet 7. This is saying that, no, yes, here we put our letters, our signage within the canopy. Here we've actually raised them above the canopy. So it's letters sitting on top rather than sitting face on. We're asking for that change. Also on this page, we had shown in the approved plans a sign that called out the historic Volpe House. We actually showed it here in the approved. Here we're showing it here. We still do want to do the sign. Truthfully, I think we just forgot it when we did the construction drawings. But on the Water Street elevation, we're going to have an historic plaque that says the Volpe House stood on that site, etc. I think the wordage, I'm not exactly sure how we handle that, Brian, but at some point we'll have the actual verbiage that's going to go on there. The other piece on sheet 7 was that the way it was rendered, this banding was missing. It actually wasn't drawn right, and it's drawn right now. So it looks as though there's another band there, but it's actually just drawing correctly the way it's actually going to be built. So that's more or less saying that we're going back to what we said we were going to do. It just wasn't depicted properly in the first go round. Up on sheet 8 and 9, this is the separation wall that happens between the balconies front and back. The material on the rendering was never called out. We missed it, and it's going to be the Arctic white siding that's going to happen on these 2 separation walls. Here, these, as originally proposed, were windows on the 4th floor with railings in front of them. We're saying we'd like to match the floors below and use doors, more like a Juliet balcony with the railings in front of them. And another piece that changed on this elevation is that we had originally run the cable railing all the way in this area. But in looking at that as we move forward, we realized that's about 1.5 feet in front, like hanging out in midair. So we didn't think it looked right, and we removed it. So the railings are held to the Juliet balconies removed in this area. This is also showing an elevation, the stair and door that won't leave me alone. That's from sheet 5. What else? Sheet 9 and 10.
The other side of the front door, the other side of the dividers.
Yes. Yep. So I think, Steve, correct me if I'm missing something, but I don't think so. Water Street rear. Composite banding just changing from the approved. The composite banding, again, the way we had drawn it, just showing how it does actually wrap around there. It's more of a clarification of what was originally approved on the rendering. This is based on changes we made and then Jim's review. I believe we've caught everything. There's 11 changes. Should we go back to the rendering? What would you guys like to see?
In my opinion, basically, these are all minor, but they needed to be cleaned up basically in the set. And I understand some of this is just coordination, but it didn't reflect what we approved. So I think with these updates, basically, we're back to where we should be. And the set that was submitted for permit, basically, along with the landscape drawing, which was missing, should be adequate for my signing this off, assuming that everybody else sees that these are just coordination issues, really.
All right, where is that landscape plan?
It was just missing from the submitted set is all.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't in the package, so there's no changes to it. It just wasn't there, period.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, again, where most of these appear to be clarifications and not actual changes from what we approved, and the ones that are seem pretty minor, like the balcony depths, and Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of them, so you could sort of get nervous that a lot of minor things add up to something more. But I think I'm fine with this. Does anyone else have any thoughts or concerns?
No.
Okay.
I move that we define what's been outlined today on the plans and presented to us as minor modifications
Second.
to the original decision.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion?
And you're going to allow the minor modifications, right?
Allow them, yes. Allow them as minor modifications.
Second. Sixth.
Thank
That
you.
damn stair.
All right. Let's see. All right, so the 4 voting members on the original one were actually Jim, Chip, Amy, and Joe. So they proceeded with 4 voters, and it was unanimous. So I will put it to you 4 then as the original voters. All in favor? Chip,
Aye.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
and Joe.
Yes.
Okay, so same 4 voting members approve these as minor modifications. So you have that. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else for tonight? And you can stop sharing, Peter. Probably think we're good. Yep. And thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
I don't think there's anything else for any. Okay. Any other matters, board members?
Dave, did you get a draft yet of the 69 Foundry agreement?
No,
No.
I'm working on that.
Oh, okay. I was just remembering because I think, Brian, you were adamant last time, like, that'll be done. That'll be done in a week.
Yeah. And then life got in the way, Greg.
Then life got in the way.
Yeah.
I forgot about it till right now anyways.
Yeah, no, and I did receive one from Attorney McCarthy about 2737. But I had some questions on it, and then I wanted Tom Mullen, town council, to review it. So I sent him off. So what I'd like to see is for town council to respond, and we structure it the right way, make sure it has the right wording in it that we think is appropriate, and I trust his input there. And then we make the 69 Foundry one consistent in that way. They were similar requests, but the different criteria and surety and all that, but similar requests. So I couldn't find anything in my archives that I could use as a good template. So I've asked town council for input, and as soon as we get that, Brian, we'll collaborate on this.
Great. Thank you, Dave.
Get them done.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep. Any other clerk comments or board comments about?
Do we know if, did anybody else put in papers for appointments?
I did for a 1-year term for school committee.
For this board.
I don't believe so. Again, the deadline, I think, was February 12th, and we got that material, that packet from Sherry Dalton after that. So
okay.
I assume not. I was going to raise that, is that when she sent it to us, she said, if you'd like to make a recommendation, please send it via email by March 26th. So that would be 2 days
Is
after
that
our
just
next.
from you, or is that from everybody?
It can be from the board. You know, it could be from maybe the members who are not up for renewal, perhaps. Making a recommendation. Happy to do that, but we should think about that and either discuss. We should discuss it perhaps at the next meeting, whether we do it at this time.
And I'll be happy to get off, and you guys can discuss it without me listening.
Yeah.
Listen, corn hair.
Yeah. So if you haven't already, please take the time to go through. I think there were 2 other applicants besides our incumbents.
Oh, there was. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then we should just, briefly discuss and just agree on a recommendation, assuming we can. If there's dissension in the ranks, then maybe we write our own letters. But assuming there's some consensus, then I would author a letter on the board's behalf. And
do we have a date for that meeting yet, or no?
It would be 3/24, 2 weeks from tonight. Oh, for that meeting? I think it's
the first April meeting.
I
Okay,
think
that's
I
what
want to say early to mid-April, because then they take effect May 1st, right?
Okay.
It would probably be the 5th or 12th, so not long after receiving, and other boards may have similar recommendations for
Okay.
openings. So anyway, just put it in your to-do list and we'll talk about it the next hearing.
Okay.
Dave, do we need to approve what Gail wrote regarding the annual?
Yep, we're going to get to that
report.
We should bring that up. I can do that, Gail, assuming you don't have it right in front of you.
I thought it was fine,
I can bring it up just to.
as it is every year that Gail does it.
No, well, Dave and I work on it together. I draft it and then he edits it.
Well, whatever you guys did, it sounded great. It sounded
It does.
like it has for the last 17 years.
Let me I'll bring it up on screen in case anyone has any thoughts on it. So let's see. Right, so what Gail drafted, you see, I added, so when I look back at the 2019 one, in addition to saying what we deliberated, it says what's currently before us. And a few of those are the ones I added. So now that we've closed on them in the last year, I put them in the main list, right? And that's why these come into play. So there was the Nahan Street one, which was drawn, the mobile gas station, and the 259 water, which we just talked about. So those were in front of us in the 2019 report. Now they're done. So I'm including them in 2020. I just put mid-rise in, and then just, change the words on the comprehensive permit one just a little bit. And I think I got right now in front of us is 62 and 76 foundry, not 67. So those are the only, there were minor updates, minor mods in my in our language. But anyone think of any either application that we may have missed or you would want to add? I think the one comment we got since last year was we said on Nahan Street or Main Street, and someone asked for specific addresses. So we're doing that now, but that's easy enough to do. We know what those are, and it helps people because we might do projects up and down a street, and even sometimes at the same address at different times.
I didn't look. I can't remember. Was North Ave on there?
I think that was 2019.
Yeah.
No, Shelsea's building.
Oh, 301? Yes, it was December. I think we voted on January. I looked, the 310 North?
Yeah, I think that should be in there, I think.
I think we closed in December and
one
we
out.
filed the decision the first week of January, but I think we voted on it in 2019.
Did we really?
Yeah, I think it was December of
I
2019.
didn't think it was that long ago.
They're just about done.
I'll look.
Yeah, I did look at that because that was one I questioned. I don't know, is Brian still here? He'd probably remember too, but
I keep a log sheet, so I'll look back.
okay, yeah, he may have dropped. Yeah, he dropped. Okay. Yeah, if you check that one, I did. Yeah, I tried to go on when we approved it, even if like things that happened in December, we may not have filed a decision till early January. But if we decided on it and closed it in that calendar year, I would have included it. And I think we did that. We included it last year.
Hey, what about the cell tower stuff? Do we have to put that in there, or
We group it in as
did you throw it in there?
Many findings.
many findings, yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, the wireless communications.
Yeah,
Right.
because those are like administrative findings. So we kind of lumped it in, accessories and pools and various signs, et cetera. So yeah.
Yep.
And this is what's before us, right? Actually, yeah, well, 404 we just closed on,
Yeah, but
but we didn't do it last year. But we
Right.
didn't. Yeah. So it'll get closed off next time. But yep. All right. Well, again, if everyone's good with it, Gail, I would just take the version I gave you and incorporate these changes and send it off.
Good.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so CBA report. Okay.
I move that we approve the minutes.
February 24th.
Those would be the ones.
Second.
Any discussion on the well-written minutes?
I can't tell if you're kidding or not.
I have a question. Why do you need minutes if everything's being totally recorded and
No.
visual now.
I
But
don't
that's
know.
only my question to get Gail off the hook of doing it.
Thanks, Chip.
I tried, kid,
I think there needs to be something written in the file.
probably.
Yeah.
Or the legislature has to weigh in, basically.
Yep. Yep. All right, so hearing no other discussion, Chip, all in favor? Yes?
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yep.
and I vote yes. Okay, unanimous. Well done, Gail. And Jim,
Thank you.
don't forget to take them tomorrow night too.
Well,
Now,
Gail said-
Or you can assign them to Amy, you know.
Yeah, I'll sign them with Amy. Actually, Gail said she'd step up.
I can watch it at a later date and take some notes if you
that's what I mean.
want something in the file.
Yeah.
But I'm not going on the Zoom meeting tomorrow.
No, that's all right. We don't need you. We don't need.
Oh, good.
Come on, Gail.
Nah.
If I run short of public, I'll ask you to come on.
No. No, thanks.
I move we adjourn.
Wait, quick question before we do that. Sorry. Gail, Greg had brought up a good point earlier.
I'm
that,
calling you when I wake up in the morning, by the way.
Do not.
I'm calling you when I wake up in 2 hours, Chip.
The governor's notice or whatever, that should be updated because we can have more than 10 people in a meeting now.
Oh.
Yeah, and there
okay.
may be, I think it's 25 now, and there may
I
be
think it
other
is
things
too.
we have to update. So I don't
Oh,
know if
as of
Steve
March
or-
22nd, I think it is, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I think
So
so.
we're going back to live meetings?
No,
I'm
but
not.
that,
Saying for the,
yeah, I'm not the one that
Yeah.
creates that, but I will I'll look into it. And I think though it might be March 22nd that.
yeah, I think it's coming up.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think
Notify
there might
all
be
the-
other things like, do we want to have Steve or Tom weigh in just because there's things like, oh, the public cannot attend, but maybe they can now. I don't know what all the.
Yeah.
It would apply to all the legal
Yeah.
notices. Yeah, yeah. Not just ours.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I don't create them, and the person who
Yeah.
does, right on top of things, so I'm sure they'll, yeah, but I will,
A new one. Okay.
yeah, I'll definitely ask.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Okay.
Anything else?
No.
Chip?
I move we adjourn,
Second.
and I'm in favor of it. Bye, guys.